Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1105 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news that apparently Europe's launching a massive rearmament plan for the entire European alliance. Also, Ukraine struck Russian oil sites in an S-300 air defense system, and there's a massive frontline retreat happening by the Russian forces. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world, as we've been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces, in just the past few hours alone, have been able to conduct successful attacks on Russian oil refineries all the way from the Samara Oblast of the Russian Federation and down to the area of Novoshitinsk within the Rostov-on-Don Oblast. We have also been able to hear at the exact same time that Ukrainian armed forces have been able to conduct successful maneuvers on the battlefield today, continuing their encirclement of the city of Pokrovsk and forcing the Russian Federation into a retreat towards the eastern side of the city, while at the exact same time attempting an encirclement of the Russian Federation armed forces positions south of the city of Pokrovsk, as frontline advances have been made in that area today. We have also been able to hear some additional news from around the region of Ukraine that a major S-300 and S-400 air defense battery has been hit within Saki, Crimea, with video and picture evidence coming out to show that some sort of a precision strike was conducted by the Ukrainian armed forces that were able to knock out one of the vital air defense systems protecting the Crimean Peninsula at this point. We have also been able to see that the Russian Federation has continued to take significant losses on the battlefield, as it appears that the Russian Federation's wartime position is not that great. However, the diplomatic position is becoming a little bit more competitive for the Russian Federation, as we have been able to hear, unfortunately, today that the United States of America, through the orders of the Office of the President of the United States, has officially ceased all military aid and support to the state of Ukraine, and has in fact turned around incoming shipments that were arriving in Europe at this point that were to be shipped into Ukraine effective immediately. At this moment, we understand that this is going to be indefinite, although we have been able to hear that the president of Ukraine and the Ukrainian state government have stated that they are willing to sign the mineral deal, which would see the continuation of military support to the state of Ukraine and most likely continued military support packages into the foreseeable future that would be able to help the Ukrainians continue to fight the conflict. However, the future is not as uncertain as one would believe, as we have been able to hear that the European Union is beginning remilitarization effective immediately. And not only that, we'll be liquidating Russian assets throughout the future to be able to finance and also produce weapons and arms for the state of Ukraine to be able to continue fighting this conflict. We have also been able to hear within the area of the Middle East that the United States and Israel have conducted a joint military exercise today within the Eastern Mediterranean, and we've also been able to hear that according to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of the Islamic Republic of Iran, a new terrorist organization has now emerged within the area of Syria and may actually go to war with Jelani's government, which is already considered radical, if not pro-Iranian leaning as it is. We have also been able to hear some additional news as well, a major success for U.S. strategic interest within the area of the Americas, as we have been able to hear that C. Hutchison, the company that owns the major Panamanian ports of Balboa outside of Panama City and Cristobal within Cologne, will be selling their port holdings and departing from their largely economic control over the Republic of Panama, which is a major success for the United States strategically, as this will ensure that the People's Republic of China is not able to have a large amount of economic leverage over a nation that holds a vital artery and passageway that allows for U.S. commercial and military assets to be able to transit quickly and safely. But we have a major amount of news to cover today, an absolutely significant amount, and of course, I've got to say that things have been a little interesting today. Of course, many of you all know what I'm talking about. Right now, our viewership is being halved right now, or we're really competing for viewership in between our show right now and the situation that's going on inside of the U.S. House of Representatives, as there is an address being made by the president right now. We will not be making any comments about that address, as it's ongoing while we're in the middle of running this show, so I'm not actually able to see any of it. And on top of that, that would largely start to get into our no politics rule. And while we've made it incredibly clear in the prior days that the President of the United States, in our opinion, is not pursuing a pro-American, pro-Western interest sort of an approach to the situations inside of Eastern Europe, we do not want to get into political commentary as a normal going of the channel. But nevertheless...
But Enforcer, at least we can say that the Enforcer stream is officially open to refugees from the speech. If you're coming to seek refuge, the Enforcer channel is here. I see a lot of people trying to decide which one they're going to watch. Is it going to be the speech or is it going to be the Enforcer channel? And some people apparently have a football style setup and they have it on the split screen. So if you're here and you got on the split screen, I say more power to you because you got to listen to one or the other if you don't have the split screen. So we're glad everybody's here.
So, of course, if you are here at this point and you are not wanting to listen to the address in Congress, we welcome you, because we have a pretty decent amount of news to cover, nevertheless, especially from the front lines in Ukraine, as while the diplomatic situation has continued to deteriorate, as many people have known, for days at this point, we have been able to see that the actual frontline situation is still improving in the favor of the state of Ukraine for now. Moving on into the major news, however, that we were able to hear throughout the Russian Federation is that another significant Ukrainian drone and missile attack has been conducted across the territory of the Western Russian Federation, where most of the population centers are existent inside the Russian Federation, and not only that, most of the industries vital for war production and war materials. We've been able to hear that the Ukrainian state has conducted another attack on the Russian oil refineries spanning throughout the entirety of southwestern Russia, from the region of Samara, or the Samara Oblast, and all the way down towards the area of Rostov-on-Don. Successful attacks have been conducted, and the most significant attack that we've been able to hear of so far actually happened within the Samara region of the Russian Federation in the town of Syzran. And we can actually see in the town of Syzran there are a couple of major strategic targets that the Ukrainians could attempt to destroy. For example, there is a major ammunition depot, or what used to remain of one of those depots, that is within this area, and there have been some stated rumors that I've seen online that they've started to bring this facility back up to some sort of an operational status, although that would take a quite good bit of effort. I mean, most of it's abandoned. But beyond that, to the south, we do see a oil refinery that is capable of producing around 170,000 barrels of usable fuel products per day when at peak operational capacity. And from what we've been able to see by video and picture evidence, it appears that the refinery has been hit by Ukrainian armed forces and is on fire at this point. This is one of the videos videos that we got, and it sounds as though the refinery is a roaring blaze.
Honestly, it's like an iron foundry or something at this point. It sounds so roaring.
Man, it's almost like a steel mill with the way those sheets be rolling, or of Russian tiers more so, because the Russians are once again seeing that the usable fuel product deficit that they've been suffering from for months, if not over a year at this point, will be continuing on in the severe fashion that it has been, without really any end in sight. With the Ukrainians still conducting air attacks onto the Russian Federation's critical infrastructure, this is showing us that the Russian Federation still does not have the prerequisite amounts of air defense to be able to actually protect vital assets throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation. And for this reason, it appears that the state of Ukraine is still able to ensure that the Russian Federation is running a usable fuel product deficit practically every single day of the year without end. And it doesn't really look like there will be any end in sight to that, at least at this point. We have also been able to see down within the area of Novoshatinsk, which is just on the other side of the Ukrainian border and right inside of the Russian Federation, we have been able to see that another vital fuel depot has been hit and appears to be significantly damaged, at least at this point. What we're talking about, and I'm trying to see if I can find it really quickly because I actually had this up before and was able to, here we go, here it is. It is this fuel facility right here. This is the one directly outside of Novoshatinsk, and it's just a couple of miles inside of the Russian-Ukrainian border, and we can see right here that this facility is a little bit of a larger size. From what we understand, this facility is a small refinery. It's actually a very limited-sized refinery, but it also is a fuel storage area for the Rostov-on-Don Oblast, for them to be able to, of course, bring in usable fuel products and then distribute them throughout the region. From what we're understanding, this facility was also hit as well by the Ukrainian armed forces, and it appears that the damage was pretty significant, as we were able to hear a little bit of gunfire out there, the Russians apparently trying to loot the place.
Опять жужжание. Во.
Wow.
Взрыв. Откуда?
Oh.
Это совсем близко.
Wake up the firefighters. Send them to Chernobyl.
He's delusional. Send him to the infirmary. And
I'm afraid the infirmaries would be overflowing if you sent all the Russians to the infirmary.
Man, dude, the infirmary would be like, sorry, first off, they don't have insurance, and second off, too many, so send them back to where they came from. But we can also see another little fire roasting out there in the distance. Looks warm. Looks like Christmas.
Нормально так-то.
Anyways, that's the end of that clip right there. But very nice to see the Ukrainians were able to conduct another successful deep strike campaign into the Russian Federation, which will once again be ensuring that, at least in terms of critical fuel resources, the Russian Federation will be running a little bit low on those, at least for the foreseeable future. We are understanding that the state of Ukraine considers hitting Russian oil infrastructure a top priority and ensuring that the Russian Federation is eventually, militarily, brought to its knees and then brought to the negotiating table under amicable circumstances, and for this reason, the Ukrainians are devoting a lot of time and effort into their ability to continue to strike these facilities. I've also just been told by Matthew, most likely because the paper-mache house that we're in right now is shaking to the core, that we may run out of power, and I just want to let all of y'all know that, because while there is a lot of energy going on this stream tonight, the energy that is supplied to our house may be limited in supply tonight. We are currently dealing with incredibly severe storms in the Birmingham area and have been dealing with severe winds throughout the course of the entire day. Our house has literally been shaking the entire day because of the winds. Some of y'all would say, that doesn't sound structurally sound. Well, you haven't seen Alabama construction then, because that meets the state's construction standards. But nevertheless, the power might go out at any minute at this point, but we are going to continue the stream as long as we can until the power goes out. So it'll be a lot like the Titanic. You know, the ship's sinking, the power's on, the violinists keep playing until the power goes out and the ship splits in two and then sinks under the sea. That's probably what we're going to be doing here tonight. Or we could sit there and keep going until the economy runs out, because, well, we're not going to get into that, but you know, it is what it is. But anyways, moving on from that and out of the deep strikes inside the Russian Federation, one thing that is important to remember is that at this point, we have a rough estimate, due to the last attacks and the updates that we've gotten from them, that the Russian Federation is losing around 900,000 to 1.1 million barrels of usable fuel products per day from their strategic fuel reserves. This is actually a significant amount, and they have been in in the process of losing this sort of an amount for about a couple of weeks at this point. Before that, the average was around 600,000 to 700,000 barrels of usable fuel products per day, but it does appear that the Russian Federation is continuing to sustain extreme and serious damage at this point to their economic systems, such as their most important ones, which is the oil refineries and industries. But not only that, most importantly, the Russian Federation is running out of reserve capital to be able to repair the stricken facilities and bring them back online and make them operational. It does appear that, at least at this point, the Russian Federation doesn't really have any kind of a foreseeable future where they could get that kind of massive amounts of reserve capital at this point to be able to really try and get some of the damaged refineries back online and to cut down on the overall loss of usable fuel products, at least for now. That may change. Of course, we do not know if it will change or it will not change, but hopefully we'll see that the Russian Federation continues to be driven to its knees so that we will eventually make it to the negotiating table under amicable terms. Moving on from that, however, we have been able to hear, and this is something that Matthew just asked a question on, because this is something that in the diplomatic sphere has not been going over too well today with many, ourselves included. And funnily enough, I'll tell you all the craziest thing. Matthew actually made a news video on this today, and I don't know what it is. I'm going to be a little bit unfiltered here on this one. I don't know what it is, but some people just don't have any sense, because loads of people came in and started disliking the video, and then also making it sound like we're the ones who did this action today. I want to make this fairly clear to many who may not have the intelligence to discern in between us and the President of the United States that the President of the United States and me is not the Brendel-fly. I have not been fused with the President of the United States, so his actions are not my actions. Largely, we have not been in support of the President's actions so far in terms of foreign policy or largely the conflict in Ukraine is concerned. So if you are coming in here and you're about to blame us as a blanket statement as an American, that is going to be grounds for instant ban. Just got to make that clear, because I'll be entirely honest, it wasn't even funny at all at the start, especially considering that we make our stances fairly clear and obvious on what our beliefs are, what's in support of American and Western interests, and what's in support of the state of Ukraine. Not only that, what's really in support for the United States' long-term strategic objectives around the entirety of the world, which is where most of our decision-making comes from. With that in mind, we have been able to hear that the President of the United States has suspended all military aid to the state of Ukraine effective immediately today. I did not put down a bulletin on that. I'm sure every single one of y'all has heard that news today, and if you haven't, you can find it on our Twitter, which is in the link in the description below. Click on that link. You'll go straight to our Twitter and see it, or our Twitter, either one. But beyond that, this means that as of this point right now, the state of Ukraine is completely deprived of any incoming or continuing stream of U.S. military equipment and aid. That includes munitions, and that also includes vehicles as well. Really, anything that was provided by the United States, including spare parts, will not be provided from this point forward, at least with the situation that we're seeing right now. It is not an incredibly good one, and it doesn't appear that the United States of America is making an incredibly good decision in our foreign policy perspectives on what this will really mean, because there is a lot that is already coming out of the fallout in Europe, and I have to say that the Europeans have not been as bold as I thought they would be, really as bold as they should be for their own interests. But nevertheless, it does appear that this will start to create a pretty significant rift in between the United States and European countries. As we can see, the United States is largely attempting to adjust the situation in Europe into something that could be more akin to Russia's favor than Ukraine's favor or Europe's favor as a larger part. But we were able to see that a lot of people have been having many different kinds of opinions on this. As a matter of fact, it seems like everyone's really split right now on what will be coming, and I'll be entirely honest with y'all. Y'all are about as split as my opinion on it, because it's absolutely unclear what the President of the United States is doing from day to day. One day, we could be supporting Ukraine. The next day, we could be stopping all aid. And then the next day after that, we could impose sanctions on all of our major trading partners, and then watch the stock market lose a decent amount of its value within a single day, and then we're told that the economy's doing great. But beyond that, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well? Are you thinking that it may take a little while for that aid to be restored? Or are you thinking that it has been permanently halted? Or do you think it'll resume rather quickly? And remember, Matthew, no matter what answer you give, you've got a 33% chance of being wrong, because there's absolutely no clue of knowing what will be happening in the future. So what are you thinking, Matthew? What is everyone else thinking?
All right. So it looks like 32% of the audience said it might take a little while for aid to be resumed and once again the halt to be lifted, while 27% said no, it will be permanently halted by the United States, and 23% said yes, it will resume rather quickly. And on this one, I have to kind of agree with the enforcer on this one. This one's a bit tricky to actually predict this. I would say, though, my hunch is it'll be resumed rather quickly. That's my hunch. I have a feeling the minerals deal is going to get signed. We did hear Zelensky come out today and actually make somewhat of a semi-apology on Twitter. So it sounds like Zelensky is being pressured quite a bit to sort of cave in to U.S. demands in the hopes that maybe the relationship can be salvaged. So I think this might be another tactic. Once again, it's just basically a guess at this point because it's very unpredictable, but I'm actually with the 23%. I think it's going to resume pretty quick, and it could be resumed within just a couple of days because ultimately speaking, the reality of Ukraine falling because of a lack of weapons, that would still be viewed as a failure by most people, and I really doubt that they're going to be allowed to fall in this such extreme manner like this. So I think it will be resumed. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my opinion, that I would have to be within the unsure and undecided. It's really hard to say because at this point, just being entirely honest with y'all, our analysis usually is 90% correct on everything. And since the current president has taken office, our analysis has been correct on only a handful of things. Most of the time, it's ended up being wrong because we largely work off of the same kind of logical framework that we've been working off of for years, that some sort of an action will equal largely a exact reaction. And now at this point, one action can create a just completely random reaction to it, or there could be a completely random action that once again results in a completely random reaction to that as well. So it's largely hard to follow or really unpredictable at this point to figure out what's going to be going on here in the future with what's going on with the state of Ukraine, what's going on with American and Western interest, or what's really going on even with U.S. foreign policy as a standalone. It's really hard to be able to tell, and for that reason, I can't even really tell y'all my opinion on that kind of a poll. The best thing to see is that support is resumed immediately, and that support is continued to the state of Ukraine well on into the future. That would be the most beneficial thing for everyone involved, because we have to lay out once again to those who may be uninitiated or those who do not want to initiate themselves the kind of situation that we're looking at here, and it's a pretty big picture sort of a thing, but let me try and put it all into frame for some people so that way they know what we're dealing with. The United States doesn't sit on an island. Imagine the United States as a business, or a company more so, that generates money. And for the United States to be able to generate money, it largely has to have customers, and it also has to have suppliers. No company exists with customers alone. Most companies, if not all companies, largely exist with customers buying the goods from the business, and then also suppliers giving the business supplies for the consumers to purchase. With that in mind, that's exactly the way the United States operates on a national scale. The United States has countries that we ship our goods to. Those are our customers, and we make a great deal of money off of the goods that we ship to our customers. We also have suppliers. Sometimes our customers are the suppliers of the things that we weren't able to sell to them, and we would like in exchange to sell to other customers. And so for this reason, the United States has one of the most interconnected and largest trade links that has ever been seen in the world for the large part, and largely has deferred trading status with most of these countries, or largely is one of their major trading partners, and in exchange, those countries are our largest trading partners. Those include Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. And so with that in mind, the largest one of the three, as far as economically concerned, which is the European Union, which largely operates as an entire amalgamated group at this point, is one of our largest and most important trading partners, specifically because of the wealth that they provide and the potential wealth that the United States can produce from our business relations with the Europeans. With this in mind, many countries in the past, over the past 30 years, have decided due to a fear of Russian aggression and also the promise of better economic opportunities within a Western-led sphere, have decided to join NATO on their own volition since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. That has included Poland, the Baltic states, and most of the Balkans as well. And many of those countries have ended up joining. The Russian Federation has taken a particular issue to this, especially since Vladimir Putin has become the president of the Russian Federation, and he views the Russian Federation as a country that has a great deal of potential to create a new sphere of influence very similar to that of the Russian Empire. It's not really in terms of the kind of aspect or prospects that Putin is looking for the future of Russia, a Soviet-like mindset or a communist-like mindset. It is in fact a completely opposite sort of a motivator. In fact, it's more so imperialistic. If you ever look at the statements that Putin has made in the past about possible military provocations within the region or territories that he would like to see brought back under his control, that includes the Baltic states and only parts of Poland. If he was looking to recreate the Soviet Union, he would want to expand it all the way over into East Germany. But instead, he only extends it as far as parts of Poland, and largely Ukraine and Belarus and the Baltics are also included into that as well. It's making it incredibly clear that as far as the future is concerned, Putin is looking to recreate some form of a Russian empire and also try and attempt to create some sort of economic significance or military prowess that allows for the Russian Federation to have its own sphere of influence. The problem with that is that most countries in the region, due to the Russian actions during the First Chechen War and also subsequently after the Georgian War, where the Russian Federation invaded Georgia in 2008, many European countries felt incredibly threatened by the Russian Federation being directly along their borders and being neutrally aligned like they were. So a lot of these countries ended up joining our European sphere within Europe and have become our trading partners. Many of them have seen a great deal of economic prosperity as a result of this, and we have also seen continued increased economic prosperity in the United States due to our trade actions, or largely our customers and supplier links that we have around the entirety of the world. Now the Russian Federation has set their eyes on directly expanding westwards into Europe, or largely into what has become a part of the US-led European sphere, and that has included the state of Ukraine. The Russian Federation illegally annexed the Crimean Peninsula as well as the Donbass during 2014 because of the Revolution of Dignity, or for some other people would call it, the Maidan Head riots. Nevertheless, whichever way you call it or look at it, the government that was brought in with the ousting of Yanukovych was largely pro-Western and pro-European Union, and was already trying to look for membership into the European Union and also a membership into NATO. The reason why that happened, the whole Maidan Head riots or revolution, was because at the time, Viktor Yanukovych, who was the president of the state of Ukraine, was incredibly Russian aligned, and due to a lot of Russian backdoor operations that have been going on inside of Ukraine, there largely had been some form of a pro-Russian government that leaned towards the Russian Federation in charge during all of Ukraine's independent history from 1991 up to 2014. However, the straw that broke the camel's back in 2014 that led to the Maidan Head riots was that Viktor Yanukovych allowed for several citizens of the state of Ukraine to be extradited into the Russian Federation to face justice for crimes that the Russian Federation stated that these people were guilty of. So for this reason, the Ukrainian people viewed this as a violation of their sovereignty and practically giving over the rule of law back to the Russian Federation for their own country, and for this reason massive riots broke out. Viktor Yanukovych would be ousted as president, he would resign and actually flee to the Russian Federation, and not that long after that happened and Ukrainian ambitions to join the European Union and NATO were made clear at that time, the Russian Federation then invaded and annexed Crimea, as well as supported and largely launched their own military operations within the Donbass. With this in mind, the Europeans became somewhat concerned, at least at that moment, that the Russian Federation was going to start acting out largely on Putin's imperialist ambitions of trying to take over the Baltic states and also parts of Poland. And considering that the Baltic states and Poland, as well as others, were already a part of the European Union as well as NATO, it started to create a considerable concern that this could start to lead to war. Moving on a little bit further down the line into the future in 2022, actually 2021 more so, this is really where this began, President Zelensky, who was elected in 2019, would then begin the process in 2021 of attempting to join the European Union and NATO collectively. This was largely brought on because at the time when this action was being made, every single country inside of Europe, as well as the United States, were largely signaling positive intentions to actually bring Ukraine into NATO and into the European Union. Considering that the conflict inside the Donbass had been paused and the Russian Federation was not actively engaged in combat against Ukraine in their annexation of Crimea, this technically meant that Ukraine was not involved in an active conflict, and at that point, the state of Ukraine could have joined NATO. The Russian Federation realized this and realized once again that their imperialist ambitions would be much harder to achieve, at least at this point in time, if the state of Ukraine began to join NATO, because that largely meant that if they wanted to invade Ukraine, they were going to just kick off World War III in exchange. And so before Ukraine could even get into the NATO ascension process, the Russian Federation in February of 2022 invaded the state of Ukraine from practically all sides. Since then, and 1,105 days later, the state of Ukraine has been embroiled in a war that the Russian Federation has been conducting to pursue its imperialist ambitions inside of Ukraine and to further pursue its imperialist ambitions inside of NATO-aligned Europe within the areas of the Baltics and also parts of Poland. With this in mind, many European countries have started to see this as an intrinsic threat to their stability within the region. It's practically impossible once a country becomes a part of the European Union for something to affect one country in the European Union and not affect the rest. The best example of that could be the 2011 Greek financial collapse, which sent shockwaves throughout the entirety of the European Union. So for economic reasons, if Poland or the Baltics are attacked and are as significantly economically damaged as a result, this could cause irreparable damage to the European Union as an economic apparatus, or could spend a lot of time and effort for the European Union to try and thwart or lose major economic partners that are inside of their own economic alliance. Another thing that's also concerning is that all of these countries are collectively members of NATO. So if the Baltic states are attacked, this means that the entirety of Europe has now gone to war in the defense against the Russian Federation. With all of this in mind, the Europeans have been incredibly concerned, and the United States has been alongside them since 2014 under the administrations of Obama, Trump, and Biden. Obama from 2014 to 2016, Trump from 2016 to 2020, and Biden from 2021 to 2024 have actively supported and assisted the state of Ukraine in attempting to maintain their sovereignty or eventually align themselves to be able to join NATO. That was until very recently. Now we are seeing that there's a bit of a change, and the European Union still considers, and NATO as a whole, still considers the Russian invasion of Ukraine to be a serious threat and largely the beginnings of many other terrible things and calamities that could happen throughout the entirety of Europe. It threatens their economic and strategic standing within the region, and especially considering that European nations are on the continent of Europe, this is considered a top priority and a major concern by all of these countries that must be addressed. The United States, considering that the European Union is largely a significant customer and also an even more significant supplier of goods and supplies that we sell and buy inside the United States, has been looking to the United States for some form of support. And considering that the United States has given security assurances to make sure that the Europeans are much more apt and happy to be customers and suppliers of the United States of goods, has largely been looking to the United States to help them and assist them in supporting Ukraine and continuing to thwart Russian imperialistic ambitions that will threaten European interests and our interests, considering that Europe is still, once again, one of our customers and primary suppliers of goods inside the United States. So with all this put together, the United States is now taking actions that largely appear to not be within the interests of Europe or the United States. The United States has significant economic investments inside of Europe, not just in the amount of investments that we've made inside of Europe over the past 70 years, but also with the amount of trade that we have with them. A business can only succeed if it has goods to sell, customers to buy, and suppliers to continue to give them those goods. And with the European Union, one of our largest customers and suppliers, threatened, it's making the situation for Europe and the United States incredibly strenuous, because if the European Union is not really able to count on the business that they do a lot of dealings with, buying and selling, to come and help them out in their time of need, why in the world would they continue to give preferred status to buy and sell with that business, and why would they not take their business elsewhere to, say, China? These are largely the kind of concerns that we're seeing right now, and with the United States cutting out military aid and support to the state of Ukraine, it's become fairly clear that they're left at a crossroads at this point about what they're supposed to do.
That's the big question to me at this point. What is the best route for Zelensky to take to ensure that his country can be rearmed once again? Because right now, with U.S. military aid being cut off, that puts them in a really tricky situation. Because of course, Ukraine can go on without U.S. military aid, but the question is, how long is that going to be before they start having some issues with equipment, kind of like the Russians are encountering right now? So they can take a big bet and basically tell the United States, if you're going to play unfair with us, we're going to move on to Europe. And Ukraine can put all their eggs in that one basket of Europe. But the only catch for that is Europe seems to be admitting that they're really not ready and fully armed themselves to be able to fight a war on their own as an alliance. That seems to be what they said today when they announced an $800 billion euro plan to rearm Europe as a whole. So if Zelensky wants to take that, that's a big risk. Or he can come back and try to reinitiate contact with the United States in a, I guess you could say, a positive way, even though the first time it was positive as well. But we'll just play along with it for now. Zelensky can come back and do a public apology and basically eat crow all the way and just have to basically just sort of like put his ego aside for a moment for the good of his people and try to hope that maybe the United States will come back to its senses and reality and start arming Ukraine once again. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, hey, why does Zelensky need to apologize? He has nothing to apologize for. Honestly, at this point, it's just simply to try to smooth the relations over in the hopes that something will change. Because, of course, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if Zelensky has to stuff his ego aside. It matters if the Ukrainian people are being armed with weapons. So if he's having to deal with a very difficult person on the diplomatic front, it's better to eat the crow, take the ego hit, and simply try to play along and see what he can get. Because at that point, he could be facing domestic issues inside of Ukraine if he can't get enough weapons to keep the war going. So that could be problematic for Zelensky's political career as well. So it's just tricky. It's tricky. It's hard to tell which way you should go with this or if you should play both sides of the fence as well. It's just a tricky situation.
It is an incredibly tricky situation. It's really one that's hard to get through. And also, I see a whole bunch of people, and I think I need to explain a little bit of logic here because I think I lose some people when I talk about the trade relations that we have with other countries. A lot of people are saying, well, really the first and foremost priority or concern is the military aid to Ukraine. But the reality is that while a lot of people want to look at it as war first and domestic issues, or domestic, well, not really domestic, but more so international trade second, the external foreign policy issues are always rooted in some form of a domestic economic or international economic situation as a priority. Since the dawn of time, wars have really only been fought for resources. A lot of people make it sound like wars are fought for other things like religion or ideology, but for the large part, most countries actually pursue conflict for the pursuit of resources. One can easily see this in prior wars back in the day, especially back during ancient times, where wars of conquest were largely fought for land, as land in itself was a resource that could be used to supply more citizens with more food, considering that most societies up until the Industrial Revolution were agricultural in nature. Land was the most important resource that could be seen throughout most of history. It's almost the exact same thing in the modern day. We really only fight wars or fight offensive or defensive wars, largely defensive wars in the modern day, to protect our interest in our economic pursuits that we have. The only reason that the United States would ever come to the aid of Europe is if we have major economic stakes on the line. Or if the Europeans ever did anything to assist the United States, it's only because they have major economic stakes on the line. That's why you largely see that there isn't a lot of outrage made by the United States or Europe whenever anything really happens anywhere inside of Africa, because there isn't a major economic stake that the Europeans have in Africa or the United States has in Africa to make it of a significant concern or a serious point of contention. It's almost the same thing in Asia. The only reason why the United States is incredibly concerned and cares a lot about protecting South Korea is because it has an economy that's the same size as Russia's, and it's about the size of a thumb on the world map. With this in mind, it's an incredibly important thing for the United States to protect because we get a lot economically out of our customer and supplier relationship with the South Koreans. It's great business, and we would like to make sure that that business keeps going. So hopefully we'll be able to see that the proper actions are made by the United States, explaining everything from start to finish here with what's going on in the conflict, because if we continue to see that we start to shirk our more so friendship with our customers and suppliers inside of Europe, we'll see that they'll take their business elsewhere, and that could end up doing us quite poorly, especially in the long run. But a lot of people have been talking about something else in exchange, as we have been able to hear some people talking about what would happen if Ukraine military aid was not resumed, and a lot of people are wondering, would the Ukrainians be able to keep up some kind of frontline momentum at this point, even if U.S. support fizzled out to a complete stop like it is currently and kept up that way? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so 45% said yes, Ukraine would maintain its frontline momentum, while 26% said it would return to a stalemate on the front lines, and 19% said Ukraine would begin to lose ground. And here's the reality of the situation, just putting it straight out there and no sugarcoating it whatsoever. Ukraine has about 6 to 7 months worth of current U.S. Military stocks in order to keep the war going at its current pace. So if the aid stays paused for months, they'll still be okay. And also, you got to remember as well, Europe is stepping up their aid to Ukraine. So even though the U.S. aid might not be getting restocked, other aid from Europe will be also be getting restocked as well. And currently, we're told by Ukraine that about 50% of their weapons production is domestic now. So they can make their own weapons in about half of the total supplies they need to be able to keep fighting the war. So Ukraine is not down and out just because the military aid was halted. I know a lot of people freaked out when they heard that today. And of course, at first, until I investigated, it also got me very concerned as well. It was just like, oh, that might be the nail in the coffin. But it turns out it's not. They will be okay. But the question is, how long is it going to be before the aid is actually resumed once again? Because if it's longer than 6 months, then Ukraine might have an issue. If it's shorter than that, then they'll be perfectly okay. So generally speaking, I'm with the 46%. Ukraine will maintain momentum, and they will keep pushing the Russians back. And right now, they are really effectively pushing the Russians back even as we speak, and they're making really good progress. So even though the things look grim on negotiations, they are still doing fantastic when it comes to the war effort, which is, of course, a very good thing. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I believe the Ukrainians can keep up momentum. It's just that some systems and some abilities that they've had in the past may not be usable on into the future due to the fact that the U.S. would not be supplying those same weapon systems. However, there usually is a comparable weapon systems from some European country out there that almost does the exact same thing as a U.S. weapon system. So it may be possible that there really is no major impact on fighting abilities of the Ukrainian armed forces on the battlefield, and at the worst, they may be forced into a defensive, but at the same time, they will be able to keep up a strong enough defensive that the Russian Federation would never be able to break through, so pretty much the conflict freezes on the front line where it is right now. I think that might be a decent likelihood at this point, especially considering the statements that we heard from Europe today, which is making it clear that they are going to be moving back into remilitarizing, which we'll get to here in a moment. But let's see here. I see some people saying some interesting things, and I want to make sure that I grab one of them, because I saw someone bring up something, and I was wanting to make sure to touch on it real quick. And let's see here. Some people have been saying, someone said, no, all wars have religion at their center, and I would have to say that that's just not true. Like, tell me beyond the Crusades or the Islamic jihads, which wars actually had religion at their center? I mean, largely most of them, except for the 30 Years' War and a couple of other conflicts that had to do with the schism in the Catholic Church, or outside of that, the split of the Catholic Church into the Protestants of Northern Europe and the Catholics of Southern Europe. There really isn't a lot of religious conflicts to be seen, and I'll name a couple.
Honestly, all the religious conflicts seem to be coming out of the Middle East every time. That seems to be the hotbed for religious controversy, is basically confined to the Middle East. Because like you're saying, I really don't see too many conflicts based solely on religion. Usually it's over resources, or it's over land. That's usually what's for anywhere else. But in the Middle East, it's more about, taking land over religious purposes. Other places, it's solely about economic gain. So it is just the Middle East, I would say.
And let's talk. I'll list a couple of wars that certainly had no religion involved in them, hardly at all. For one, the American Revolutionary War, which founded the United States of America, was not founded in religious concerns at all. It was founded in governance and economic concerns, considering that the the American colonies were stating that taxation without representation was morally unjustified and wrong, and that's largely why the revolution inside the United States began. No religious overtures at all to the American Revolutionary War at all. If you hear something about that, that wouldn't make much sense, because if it was a religious war, then why in the world does the United States have its First Amendment saying that the government cannot make any official laws supporting or upholding a specific religion? That would largely show that it would have been a religious conflict, and it was not. Another conflict before that actually preceded the American Revolutionary War was the 7 Years' War, as we call it here in America, the French and Indian War, which was entirely about who was going to control the Ohio River Valley and all of the rich land and resources that existed west of the Appalachian Mountains. And that ended up being the British, because they ended up winning that conflict. Another conflict right after that would be the French Revolution, which largely was attempting to overthrow and successfully overthrew the French Bourbon government due to the Bourbon family, that was the royal family of France at the time, as they overthrew them due to economic reasons of hardships inside of France and poor administration by the French government. All of the Napoleonic Wars subsequently afterwards were all wars of conquest and expansion, or reactionary wars to the coalitions that would form to attempt to overthrow Napoleon from power inside of France. Not really religious at all. After the Congress of Vienna in 1815, practically every single conflict across the face of Europe was largely fought either in support of maintaining the balance of power that was created during the Congress of Vienna, or it was fought over reasons of conquest. For example, the Franco-Prussian War, attempting to retake Alsace-Lorraine. Then also there was another war, the Crimean War, named after Crimea, where the British and the French teamed up with the Ottomans, so two Christian nations teaming up with an the Islamic nation, to fight another Christian country, Eastern Orthodox, but still Christian nevertheless, the Russians, because they were attempting to violate the balance of power that was created in the Congress of Vienna of 1815. There is an endless example. I mean, these are just examples from the earlier part of the 19th century and the latter part of the 18th century, but there is an endless amount of examples of conflicts and wars that have had nothing to do with religion at all, and have more so something founded within foreign policy reasons, diplomacy reasons, or economic reasons, without religion even being tied in at all. It's a very famous thing that people say that religion is what starts wars. Really, anything can start a war. Religions have surely started some wars entirely, but there are many other different reasons that wars have been started. For example, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, it's a state-sanctioned atheist country that doesn't profess any religion at all and is free from every religion, invading Afghanistan for no reason, really beyond the reason of attempting to ensure that they have stable communist-aligned countries around them, or pro-Soviet countries. That was really the only point of the invasion. But, you know, you can go on and on and on about all of these different kinds of conflicts. Like, for example, you know, the Gulf War. That wasn't religious at all either. That had to do with Iraq illegally invading and occupying the Kingdom of Kuwait, and then the United States responded to that. Not a single religious overture there at all. Or the invasion of Iraq in 2003, or the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, which had to do with reasons of fighting enemies of the United States. For example, the Iraqis supposedly creating weapons of mass destruction, and the Taliban sponsoring and abetting terrorists such as Osama bin Laden that were hiding inside of their country. And all of those conflicts had nothing to do really with religion at all. Religion may have played a part for the motivations of Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, in the lead up to the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, but the United States side wasn't started by religious pursuits at all. But with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least from what I would know. But with that, it is time for us to move on into some more news, because we do have a lot of it. And we were able to hear that apparently there has been some idea floated around that the tariffs that have been imposed against Canada, Mexico, and Europe may be rolled back tomorrow, because any look at any stock market will tell you that things aren't really going that well right now. I don't even have to get into that one too much. But moving on into Europe, we have been able to hear that many European countries will be going through the process of rearmament, as we were able to hear that some of the leaders of Germany have vowed to completely rearm Germany and do whatever it takes to make that possible. We've been able to hear that the CSU leader has stated serious times require very serious measures, and we are completely rearming, and they will take whatever it needs to be able to do so. We've also been able to hear that within the European Union, a $800 billion proposition has been brought forward to rearm practically every single European country to a wartime standing and standard, meaning that we'll probably see that the European Union comes out of this as a military juggernaut within the next few years, at least if they follow through with what they're bringing forward right now. And a lot of people are wondering what are the thoughts on this for the large part. And a lot of people are saying that Europe is reacting appropriately to the situation, maybe considering that they might have to just be on their own in the future without the United States there to back them up, or largely to lean on the United States as the leader of the sphere. Some people are saying that Europe is entirely too late. Others are saying that this will never actually happen, and a very small amount of people are unsure or undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so we did hear today, like the enforcer mentioned, a 800 billion euro plan to rearm the entirety of Europe. A very massive plan, by the way, very ambitious, and it sounds like Europe's taking the situation very seriously over the threats of a potential U.S. NATO withdrawal. So that is quite a big deal. So it looks like 80% said Europe is reacting appropriately, while 12% said Europe is entirely too late, and 6% said that this will never actually happen. And on this one, I'm going to have to like take a fifth option here because sadly I can only put 4 options on the poll, but the fifth option would be options 1 and 2. Europe is certainly reacting appropriately here, but also at the same time, I'm going to call it how it is. Europe is entirely too late. This should have been done ages ago. And the fact they were able to come up with the money for it now indicates they could have done this probably in the past also. So they should have been doing this. I'm not sure why this has been put off for this long. And for Europe to need to implement a plan that large to rearm themselves, in my opinion, that is a bad sign. They've not been prepared, apparently, to defend their whole territory if they need to. So I would say on both option 1 and 2. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I believe that the Europeans are reacting appropriately because they really have to be able to react and respond to the situation they're seeing right now. This could all blow over, and the United States and Europe could remain within the same sphere of influence well on into the future. But at the same time, right now, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. It looks like it'll actually be, to the contrary, the opposite. So for that reason, the Europeans have to prepare, and so rearming is a pretty decent measure to ensure that their security interests would be assured well on into the future, and having secured their security interests, economic interests would be soon to follow right after that. So in my opinion, I do believe I would have to be with the large majority. I think the Europeans are reacting fairly appropriately to the situation, and hopefully will be able to ensure well into the future that they are well armed for any situation that may come their way, and they'll be able to defend themselves not only on the nuclear level, which they're already capable of right now, but on the conventional level as well, which is, of course, the escalatory step to nuclear conflict. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, at least the best we can, and we've also been able to hear of something interesting down in Panama. Many people know that Panama produces all kinds of interesting things, like sunscreen oil, named Panama Jack, and of course I'm just kidding. But beyond that, the nation of Panama is a fairly interesting place, and we've covered it before in the past, that there's been a decent amount of Chinese economic interests and influences that exist inside of Panama that may compromise the Panamanian government due to the economic chokehold that the Chinese have over the nation of Panama. One of the most important and significant ways that the Chinese have a chokehold over Panama is through a company called C. Hutchison, which is based out of Hong Kong, largely at this point officially a part of the People's Republic of China in full. And with that in mind, the company C. Hutchison controls the major port of Balboa. You can see this right here within the nation of Panama, and also controls the only other major port within the entirety of Panama, which is Cristobal, which is on the Atlantic side or the Gulf of Mexico side of the nation of Panama. Through these two major ports, the C. Hutchison Company largely owns and controls the only economic arteries that exist for trade into Panama. There really isn't a lot of trade that is conducted through Colombia through a land corridor, or from Costa Rica through a land corridor either, because most of that is incredibly dense jungle and forest, which really is never entered or explored for the large part. So for this reason, the only way to really trade with Panama is by sea and at these two major ports. We have been able to hear that C. Hutchison today has announced that they will be selling their holdings inside of the ports, and they will be leaving Panama for good. This still doesn't mean that Panama is out of the thick of the woods for the large part. The Chinese still built and largely have major economic holdings on critical infrastructure projects, such as most of the major bridges passing over the Panama Canal, but nevertheless, it is fairly clear that at least one major grip that the Chinese have over Panama will be disappearing on into the future, and hopefully we'll be able to see that it never returns again. But still, a fairly interesting move nevertheless, and we'll be hoping to see that the nation of Panama is able to shake more of the Chinese influence off of their country and maintain its neutrality and ensure that the treaty that's currently in place right now, which largely insists that Panama will remain a neutral country or almost in a free city model of existence, will continue into the future, and that the Panama Canal can be used by the United States as a major economic artery without concern of possible interference or involvement by the Chinese if a desperate situation was to occur. But moving on from Panama.
Also, Enforcer, by the way, we do have some breaking news here that just came out. Also, by the way, we're not jumping into the politics of the situation, but the speech in Congress has concluded as of right now. And we do have some breaking news that has come out of that speech, specifically in regards to geopolitics and also relating to Ukraine. So I'm being told here, according to our sources, that Zelensky has sent the president of the United States a letter as of recent, maybe today or yesterday, saying that Ukraine is ready to sit down at the negotiating table as soon as possible, and that they're basically buddies again, according to what the president was saying in his speech just a moment ago. And it sounds like the deal for minerals may be back on, but it's unclear exactly what the terms in that agreement are going to be. But it sounds like the deal is very close to being signed. It could be signed in the next coming days, and we'll have to wait and see what the terms are going to be. Also, by the way, we do have some other news as well that apparently the calls to invade Greenland are back on the table once more. And it's being said that one way or another, the United States is going to get it, meaning get Greenland. So that's also back on the table as well. And for right now, that appears to be it. Also, by the way, speaking of the Panama Canal, we're also hearing calls that we're going to reclaim the canal once again, regardless of what the situation is on who controls the canal. It'll be reclaimed because it was built for Americans and not for others. So that's also something as well. So a lot of actually pretty big things coming at the very end of the speech right there when it comes to the U.S. position on foreign politics. So very interesting to hear.
Interesting. Also, really quickly, I see a lot of people saying that this and that was said in the speech. I have not been able to watch the speech. I don't know if many of y'all realize I've been on the air for an entire hour telling y'all the news that we have before we got on air. So for me to know that, I would have no ability to, unless if I was magic and could somehow listen to his speech and then also talk to y'all simultaneously and run a show. So unfortunately, I did not know that. But it does sound as though a lot of interesting things are being proposed by the President of the United States in the speech. Also, to make it a little bit more clear, that was not the State of the Union. That was apparently just some presidential address to the Congress. It's not a State of the Union. The State of the Union, I believe, is still coming a little bit later on at this point, which is a little bit interesting. I don't know why there was an early convening of the Congress for the President to give an address to them. I would really have no clue why. But moving on from that, a little bit interesting to hear that we will be retaking the Panama Canal. Now, at this point, whoever controls it, because just to let you all know a little bit clearly what we were working off of with the analysis tonight, we were working off of the statements from the President of the United States prior, where he said that we were going to retake the Panama Canal if the nation of Panama was not able to remove the Chinese influence and maintain their neutrality under the current treaty. Now it sounds as though even if they remove Chinese influence, the United States is still intent on returning to running the Panama Canal zone. Which is a little bit interesting to me because it sounds as though we've kind of just done a complete double take on the Panama Canal, and now it doesn't matter how it's going, we're just going to end up retaking it anyways. So
you got to remember, you got to remember the one lesson we've learned over the course of the last month or so is to take everything with a grain of salt. If we say we're taking the Panama Canal, that could be a negotiating tactic because that appears to be the current mode of operation right now. Is go in strong, go in with a very big ask or a very big threat, and hope that maybe the negotiation will give way to whatever your actual ask is going to be in the negotiation. So it's just take everything with a grain of salt because the whole thing could be all over the place. So it's a very unorthodox way of operating, but I guess that's what we've got now. So we just have to understand that's the way it works. And if something sounds wild out of the gate, that's probably because it is wild, and that's not really what's going to end up being. So it could be taking the canal, it could be maybe not taking it. There's no telling.
Yeah, we'll have to see, but still very interesting nonetheless. But with that, it's now time for us to move on from the North American news, or the Americas news, and move all the way back over into the Middle East, as we were able to hear a little bit of news out of Syria today. We were able to hear that apparently the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, their symbol up top, right up there, has apparently backed an Islamic resistance in Syria, meaning that they've created a new terrorist force within the area inside of the interim-controlled Syria. I don't know what's going to be happening with this because from what we could tell, Jelani was already starting to move in a pro-Iranian direction. So now the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has created a terrorist organization to fight against the pro-Iranians as a pro-Iranian force. I don't know what's going on in Syria at this point. I think it's just going to devolve right back into chaos because the Druze are forming a national army. The Kurds are not going to come under the control of Jelani because Jelani clearly doesn't have the best interests of the whole of Syria in mind, really just his radical Islamic group of Syrians that is now coming to charge of most of the country. Now we're seeing that the Iranians are backing and supporting a terrorist group within Syria, with purposes completely unknown. I don't even know what they would be wanting to do because they've pretty much achieved everything they wanted to through Giuliani at this point, most likely will into the future. So I don't really know what's going on in Syria anymore, but it's just unmitigated and just devolving into chaos. So fun to know, and I'll be trying to make sense of that as time keeps passing by. But making sense of stuff in the modern world these days, it's getting tougher and tougher. I'll be entirely honest with you all. I've only been doing this for 1,105 days. And over the past month, things have gotten next to impossible to follow with what's going on. Because I see someone say, someone said, told you. Well, I mean, yeah, you did. But the thing is that Giuliani is moving towards being pro-Iranian. So then the Iranians create a terrorist group, I guess with the intention of fighting Giuliani's government forces and destroying them, although they're pro-Iranian. So I don't really know what the point would be in any of that. It just doesn't make any sense at all. But moving
Well, you
on.
want crazy? Did you see what happened in the Serbian parliament today? Did you see that video?
Oh yeah, like they were going down to fisticuffs.
Yeah. they were launching artillery at each political side in the middle of the parliament, like chambers, like literally like our version of Congress. They were launching fireworks and firecrackers at each other, and they were like the speaker was enveloped in smoke and could barely breathe. So I don't know what's going on with the world affairs these days. It seems like people have just lost their minds. Not that Serbia is really known for having complete peace, but it's even at that, that's crazy.
Oh, Serbia is a hellhole. Like really, like it's like that a lot. But like honestly, it's always been like that in Serbia. They've always been crazy. That's like I think like the 5th major brawl that they've had in like 10 years in their parliament. And also by the way, just to put this out there, just to remind everyone, Serbia is the only country in the Balkans that's Russian aligned, mind you. So once again, putting out a great example of what Russian aligned countries look like is almost a band of devolved thugs beating each other up and then pretending like it's a government instead of it's just a fight club inside of the middle of the capital. But it was an interesting thing. I won't doubt that. I won't even contrast that. I saw it and it was wild. Like it was a legitimate fight, a brawl to the finish, quite truly, from beginning to the.
It made for a great play-by-play sports commentary segment, the short war video today. Honestly, I didn't know any other way to do it. I was like, I'm just going to call this off like a football game or something. Literally, like one side would launch something at the other one. They would toss it back like they were returning a grenade or something like that. Then another side would get the launcher out and put a firework over there on the other ones. And the whole time, the speaker's just sitting there helpless while smoke's going and enveloping his whole face. It was just chaos, the whole thing.
Man, it was almost as chaotic as the Congress today.
I've never seen anything like that in our Congress. I'll say we've not delved into that kind of insanity quite yet, but hold out hope it won't end up like that.
It actually has.
Are you sure? Oh, you're talking about a way tall,
long time ago. But one guy did get caned in the Congress, back in 1856. So I mean, technically, it has happened before.
Interesting. That's this is a very interesting thing here. I see that apparently the bat was mightier than the pen in this instance because this guy right here was not getting any favors with the pen. Also, we have people today that will film fights and stuff like that. They won't intervene to stop it. Look at those goons back there in the back, smiling this whole thing right here. If they had cell phones, they'd be filming.
Dude, this guy's I've never seen such. And this guy's look at him. He's getting his ass beat. He's get him. Oh, man. Dude, I don't know what this guy is doing over here, man. He's I promise I'll get you the $50. I promise, man. Don't hurt me. I don't know what is going on the left. But, dude, this is honestly an amazing illustration, man. And this guy also looks like he's getting a fill of it as well, just watching this ass beating going on in the middle of the Congress. Honestly, man, y'all, I'm going to be completely unbiased here. I could see something like this happening in the Congress here very soon, with how things were going today. I can promise you there's going to be fists flying at some point here in the future. Because I
hope not.
Yeah, well, I hope not, but it's probably going to happen, to be entirely. Oh, wait a minute. They actually have the cane on display. This is what the guy got beat with. It's this cane.
Oh, that was the one he got beat down with. Dang, man, they kept the beating instrument right here in the museum. This is the Royal Smackdown stick right here. This is what beat the guy down. I wasn't gonna make a different joke. I didn't want to get profane though, but he beat the hell out of the guy with that cane. They're putting it on display.
Well, wait a minute, hang on. The cane Brooks used was broken into several pieces, which he left on the blood-soaked floor of the Senate chamber. Some included the
Damn.
cane's gold head, which was recovered. So that's the gold head of the cane. Let's see. The portion of the cane eventually ended up at the Old State House Museum in Boston. It was worked to smooth the edges and finish, and then put on display. So this is the original cane. They smoothed it back down and stuff after it was beaten into pieces. But that is the original gold head to it.
Interesting. Well, it's a nice looking cane, by the way. It's a shame that he snapped it over that guy's head like it was a piece of like a twig or something. But nice cane.
Let's see here. Hang on, hold up. I think Charles Sumner, if I'm remembering correctly. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Sumner was the abolitionist. Because this is like right before the Civil War. This is one of the things leading up to it. He was an abolitionist from, I believe, I don't know where he was from actually. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to tell you all that. But the guy caning him actually was from the South. And that's why it says Southern chivalry. It's kind of making fun of the whole Southern chivalry kind of thing because beating someone's ass isn't exactly chivalrous, especially in the middle of the Senate. But
are they sure this guy was even human? Because that leg back there in the back that's like on the back foot back there is like literally like a noodle or something. It's like, I don't think this guy is human right here.
Dude, also, man, I don't know what kind of pose this guy is striking, but it looks like he's literally going, oh, great heavens, in the middle of getting beat. Like, it's like, I don't know what's up with this. But this guy's face right back here in the back, dude, you can make that into a reaction meme right there. No joke. Like, that's actually, like, perfect, honestly. But anyways.
Honestly, you could. This is a good painting right here. I love it.
A good illustration, I'd say.
Yes.
Heavens. Because we have to be snobs here. This isn't a painting. This is an illustration. But anyways, moving on from that, I do want to make sure that we get through the rest of the news. And also, I also want to say this really quickly. We're not going to have a pause for a question segment here in the middle, because I do know that a lot of people, I can actually, like, physically see it, have come in to watch the stream after the State of the Union. Well, not the State of the Union. It was just an address to Congress. The State of the Union is going to happen later at some point, just to let you all know. So with that in mind, I don't want to pause this right now since a lot of people just got here. So we're just going to keep on carrying on with the news and covering it. And then once we're done, we'll get all of the questions in one giant fell swoop. So with that, we're getting right back on into the news. And moving on into the Kursk Oblast and into this region, we were able to see the Russians were getting hit hard with rock music and the Savarga group. We all know the Savarga group. And you see here the Russians wandering around in Kursk. Oh, and looks like the chat just gets disconnected. Matthew?
On my end, I can still hear you and see the chat.
Oh, yeah, apparently it's just on my end. Oh, what an odd coincidence. But we can see the drone coming on in.
Let's see, I see someone saying lag. I just see one so far, so maybe we'll be in the clear.
And we can see
I think it was just a hiccup.
Oh! I think it was a hiccup. They got him, though. And that's the end of that clip.
Honestly, by the way, I see people mentioning the speech, by the way. That speech almost went on for 2 hours. I think that might be one of the longest ones. Technically, that was not a State of the Union, though, so I guess you really can't make that an official record, I don't think. But that might be one of the longest ones that they've ever had in the Congress.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Also, I saw someone say, this is one that I have to address because I always like to address historical inaccuracies. Someone said that a certain person stated that Britain has never fought an actual war. One second, I want to make sure. Europe hasn't been in a war. So that would be untrue, because there's been a lot of conflicts that specifically France and Britain have been involved in since World War II. For example, the Malayan emergency, which was the Malaysian Civil War. It's just they called it an emergency for insurance reasons. I'm not even kidding. That's literally the reason why they called it the Malayan emergency. Was so that way they could still have British insurance companies pay out their insurances, because if it was called a war, wars weren't covered under the policy, so they called it an emergency instead. But also the Falklands War is probably one of the most famous ones. There was also a whole bunch of wars that Britain would end up getting engaged in the middle of Africa while they were withdrawing and allowing for these countries to, self-govern. There were a lot of conflicts that the British were involved in. The French were involved in the war in Algeria, the war in French Indochina, pretty much the precursor to the Vietnam War. They were also involved in a decent other amount of conflicts as well. Not as many as the British, but still a large amount. And then the Soviet Union, and of course, if you want to include any of the Eastern European countries, was involved in the war in Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989. So no, there has been wars that many of these European countries have been involved in. And not only that, the breakup of Yugoslavia and the Balkanization of the Balkans was also a large conflict that a lot of European countries would end up getting involved in under NATO missions due to a request by the United Nations. But anyways, moving on from that, once again, just to put that out there, saying that Europe has not been involved in a war since World War II is markedly untrue. Anyone with a historical brain would know that that's not true, especially since the British followed us around quite literally everywhere, so they were involved in the Gulf War and the invasion of Iraq in 2003 and the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001 in significant numbers. So to make it sound like all Europe or any country individually or as a whole were not involved in any conflict since World War II is markedly untrue and is the work of someone who is just historically ignorant. You would have to be ignorant to insist something like that. But moving on from that and on into the remainder of the news that we have tonight, we have some more. And in our location unknowns, there's some very interesting ones. We got to see this Ukrainian sniper with his rifle and wearing some kind of a net.
That's kind of cool. I like that. That's a huge suppressor. Is that a suppressor?
That is the suppressor and muzzle brake.
Damn, that is a huge suppressor. That thing must be dead quiet.
Man, I'm telling you, man, that thing's got to be quiet. I'm telling you. But this guy is with the 4th Brigade. I think that's an alligator sniper rifle. You know, one of the massive ones is like a 14.5 millimeter. I think it's one of those. But a very impressive rifle. And also, I like the little net. I think it looks great. It looks like he's going to a wedding. But moving on from that into the next clip, we also got to see the Ukrainians pulling away a bomb. Sometimes they just have to do stuff like this. But as a 500 kilogram bomb, and they're just getting a little kick out of it and also dragging it away. But moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also got to see a destroyed T-90M somewhere in the Donetsk Oblast, and it's cooked. I don't know where the road wheels went. I think the Tate brothers made a pass at this before they came to the United States and stole all the tires. They didn't even have the courtesy to put it on cinder blocks, but nevertheless, a little bit interesting to see that. Nice to see a T-90M destroyed, and there was no laugh track there, which made that joke much more hard to make, because I was like, I don't even know if that's funny or not. But moving on from that, we did get to see 3 Ukrainian drones knocking out a Russian dugout right here, and the Russians reacted.
Горел мой дом, нахуй.
Oh, good, good deal.
Три камикадзе его разъебало, блядь. Все горит, нахуй. Все, нахуй. Сожглись, суки.
It's like a little campfire going on over there.
Первый камикадзе въебал, мы там были внутри. Вот. Второй, потом третий, нахуй. А остался я без хаты, блядь. Ёбаный в рот, блядь.
That thing is
Oh,
toasted.
блядь, you gotta get a little arson, блядь. It's too cold for arson, блядь. The sticks will not burn. It's too frozen.
Well, getting a little cooked out here, a little cookie. But moving on from that, we also got the Russian casualty report. A huge shout out to Miss Disa for posting the casualty report because Kyiv Independent didn't do it today, so I had to get it directly from Miss Disa. But ole mole, no bobcats.
Oh my gosh, no bobcats at all. What the hell is going on? But you know, I know what is going on though. The left side of the column of losses is a little bit crazy, but tell us more.
And Miss Disa, keeper of the record, stated the troop losses are above average again. Other categories are below the 7-day average, and a big drop from recent days. And it is the enforcer, no bobcats, and sorry. And the apology is accepted, Miss Disa. We will accept your apology, but we want a written apology. We will not accept less. But
if you expect me to grovel, I will not grovel.
I expect you to grovel and schnevel, like everything in between. You got to put on a whole show for me. But moving on from that, we were able to hear that the casualties were considerable. 1,340 Russian soldiers had been wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 8 APCs, 101 supply trucks, 3 main battle tanks, 45 artillery pieces, 86 drones, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. All in all, it was a pretty decent day, and it does appear that the Russian Federation is continuing to take significant losses on the battlefield, and the Ukrainians are continuing to hold them at bay. Moving on into our actual frontline news, we were able to see the Ukrainians hitting some Russian forces up here in the northern area. And we could see an intro with an incredibly loud song playing in the background that was quickly muted. Masterfully muted. We mute better than anyone else. We can see them here hitting a T-80 BVM. You You're probably
See, if they would just get longer ties, they could sweep away the Russian debris with their ties. Just brush it away.
wondering, man, I know where you got that one from, and that was a pretty funny one.
I stole it.
Man, now they're going to be saying, he stole it. Man, I told
Man, if you're a comedian and you steal jokes like that, like you're a dedicated comedian, that apparently is like fighting words in the comedian community. Like you steal one like I just did from somebody. Like that's like you're going to go at it with somebody for that.
Dude, that's because that's their living, man. Those jokes, those little one-liners are their livings. So if you steal one, it's like stealing their living from them.
Man, I'll tell you what, they better copyright that thing next time.
Man, I'm telling you, man, they better, but unfortunately they don't. so steal away. I'm just kidding, by the way. But still, nice to see them knocking out some Russian forces within the north. And we were also able to see them hitting a Russian car in the howitzer. Check this out, and we can see a little clip of the Russians moving around the D-30 here. Very nice. They're about to blow it up. There's the truck. And there's the little ESP, the turtle piece in the back, the D-30 blade. Bam, and they got it.
You know, I'm shocked that I haven't seen any videos of the donkeys being engaged by the Ukrainians so far. If they are doing it, they're really not filming it from what I've seen.
Maybe because it's a little too gruesome.
Could be.
But moving on from that and down the line, past the Severonsky Forest and Seversk, because we got no combat footage or clips from those areas today, we are now going to be moving on down into Bakhmut in Chasiv Yar, where we get to see that the FPV drones are being taken out significantly. Oh my goodness. Someone with no brain say, why you constantly make fun of our president? I made fun of the last one too. I don't worship politicians. If you would like to worship them, you can. I find it stupid. I'll just be completely honest with you. Is the current president great? No. Was the last one great? No. That's what it is. You know, you can take that or leave it. If you want to leave it, do not care. Moving on from that.
I tell you what, we don't pledge allegiance to one man. We never have. But we do pledge allegiance to the Constitution and the country. So, you know, everything else is up for debate, except for the very few things that are founding of the country. So, you know, I don't understand why people get so offended. It's like, you know, if you criticize a politician, like we've said multiple times on the stream, they're not going to bat for you. So, and also it's our duty as citizens to make sure we scrutinize the politicians. Once again, that's not something that's like sacred. Like, oh, like you can't speak about the dear leader. That's not the dear leader. That's just the current guy there for 4 years. And also, he's not to be worshipped either. None of them are, any of them. So I just don't understand why people get so offended.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a little bit clear for some people who don't understand this. Yes, we're making fun of Trump. We made fun of Biden. Like, we made fun of Biden endlessly, like, over his last term, because he didn't know what the hell he was saying ever. And we would make fun of that live on air for years. And I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, in my honest assessment, I'm gonna be completely frank. People took it way better when we made fun of Biden than Trump. For some reason, people act like when we talk about Trump, we're taking a shot at God. I don't know what's up with that, because we've been making fun of whoever's in the office since we've been running this channel. And the only person we've had a chance to take shots at was Biden, and we made fun of him endlessly. Like, you know, well, look, Jack, that was literally the Biden voice. We made fun of him for 3 straight years. Honestly, no one gave a damn. Most people found it funny. And then we do this voice, and we've been doing this one for the past 3 years as well. And then as soon as he becomes president, then people want to become really sensitive and be affected by our jokes, like we're shooting their dog or something like that. That I gotta say, like, as far as people being good sports about jokes being made at politicians, so far the folks who like the current president are honestly worse at it than the last, because we never got heat hardly for the jokes that we used to make. Now we make jokes like we've always been making, and now people want to be offended by him. Oh, are you making fun of the president? Because it's a free country and I can. That's really the answer to it. So if you want to worship the president and act like he's Kim Jong-un, this is not the channel for you, because we've never done that before. So I hope that addresses that fairly well. And also, by the way, one more thing. For people who want to call us stupid names, because we are doing what we've been doing for 3 years. So it used to be that we were Nazis and MAGA. That used to be the insults. Now it's that we're snowflakes and betas. I find it to be more of a bitch boy beta move to endlessly worship someone who's really done nothing directly for you. Like, has the current president saved your life? No. Why do you praise him so much? I have no clue. Because I wouldn't praise the last guy and I wouldn't praise this guy because it's just stupid and it's really weird and it looks goofy from afar. And so if for some reason you were such a beta bitch, like just to put it that way, that you cannot differentiate yourself from the president and just understand that that's some guy you elected to do a job and you're not trying to get in bed and sleep with him, then this might not be the channel for you because I've never held bars. I'll make fun of the last guy or this guy and I'm not going to stop. And if you don't like that, then go insane or go mental, wherever you want. But we're going to keep making the jokes that we've been making, and I'm not going to apologize for shit that we do with jokes because that's what they are, jokes. And if you're that weak mentally to be offended by a joke like that, that is just lame. Like, that is the lamest thing. Like, I honestly find it lame that we have to make this kind of a statement. And what's even stupider, not getting political here, is that the group of people that are getting offended right now always talk about how the other side is snowflakes and they're easily offended. And I'm not going to lie. Honestly, everyone just let the jokes that I made about Biden for 3 straight years roll right off of them. And no one even gave a damn, like, at all, because it was legitimately funny. And so then when I make jokes about Trump, now people want to act like I have shit in the middle of Barnes and Noble nonfiction section, like physically.
You did what?
Like now that we're doing this, people want to act like we have taken a shit in the middle of the nonfiction section of a Barnes and Noble. It's like, I don't know what
the nonfiction section.
Oh, well, I had to come up with something. Like I had to pick something.
I thought you picked that for a reason. I was like, why the nonfiction section? Why not the fiction section?
Yeah, because but it's the dumbest thing. Like, moving on from that though, really quick, because I got to try and round this out. It's just the dumbest thing. How people are acting with that, because the people who like supported the last president honestly couldn't give a damn that I was making fun about him. But not making fun of them, but making fun of their guy. Now I'm making fun of the current guy like we did the last guy, and now his supporters want to act like we're making an affront to the Lord himself. And I've just got to be honest with y'all, that's not changing what we're doing on this channel. And if you want to make that sound like it's political now, because now it's being done on your guy and not the other guy that you don't like, then, being a logical fool, it doesn't matter to me, because we're still going to be here running the show. So anyways, with that, we are going to be moving on into the rest of the news, as we were able to see some Russians surrendering around the area of Chasiv Yar, and we were able to see this right here.
These surrender videos are like the brief moments of wisdom that the Russian forces have out of all these war clips, which are usually honestly brain rot. Just a momentary lapse of logic.
Man, look at this. And we see the Russians surrendering to one Ukrainian. It looks like he's also holding out a barge pole. He wouldn't even touch him with a 12-foot barge pole, so he got out the 10-foot barge pole.
Ding, ding. Clean up in aisle 4, nonfiction section. Clean up in aisle 4, nonfiction section.
Ew, stop! Stop! What are you doing? It's a Barnes and Noble! Stop!
Oh my God, I thought you were talking about something in the live chat. I was like, what the hell? Somebody say that invoked that reaction?
Oh, no. What? Oh, look, there's a prisoner.
Oh. He looks kind of dirty.
Man, I wonder what kind of dirt they have on him.
Man, I'll tell you.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, look, it's handsome Squidward.
I don't know about that.
Well, dude, those cheekbones recede quite significantly.
What was he just doing? Throwing a gang sign? Did you see that? What was he throwing up?
West Topolev. Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, West Topolev. Yeah, he's repping.
I don't know what happened to this guy. And we can also see a couple of others here. They heard a loudspeaker, and that's what encouraged them to surrender. But it's a very interesting thing here that this guy, without a doubt, is mewing. I don't know where he got the free time to do it, but he was. But moving on from that, nice to see a couple of more Russians surrendering. And we were also able to see that the Russians are now digging and making mass graves for Russian soldiers that die on the front lines. They're just buried in mass. And this one grave right here has about 40 soldiers inside of it.
Jeez. What the hell's on the gravestone?
A Digimon from Pokemon.
Yeah, really?
I have no clue, honestly. I don't know what that's supposed to be. I think it's just supposed to show that there's a person there or something. I don't really know.
Kind of like torn on this clip right here, because obviously, even though these are the Russians, it is death. But at the same time, I'm trying to figure out what the hell the logic behind doing that to the gravestone was. I don't know if it's like some kind of sick joke or what.
I guess you could say that they were all straight-faced.
Yeah, I don't understand what the logic was.
Man, that's the emoji you send to someone when they send you a lame dad joke, and they put it on all of their tombstones.
That's the emoji I send when I found out somebody took a dump on aisle 4 of Barnes & Noble's nonfiction section.
Man, really, man? That's the same I did.
Someone said, looks like toilet seat. Honestly, I was going to say that, but, I'm trying to, not get too bad with it. But, yeah, it really looks like an open toilet seat, the whole, gravestone thing. I don't know what the Russians were thinking behind this, because they're the ones who set this up.
I have no clue, honestly. And when you see him just continuing to look at him, and they just keep going. And there's more of them. This guy's got 3 eyes.
He sure does. That must mean something. Must be like code.
That must be like a 1950s insult. Hey, 3 eyes or something like this. Like, okay.
Jeez. And is there something wrong with this site or something? Or is this like are they showing it? What's the point of filming the video?
It's just showing mass graves of unmarked, graves of Russian soldiers.
It's kind of interesting because it's not really done properly or anything like that. It's just kind of like some of the graves don't appear to even be dug into the ground. They're like sort of above the ground.
Yeah, there's a very lazy work being done right there. But we also got to see the 53rd Brigade taking down some drones near to the area of Toretsk. We see them here lining up to take that thing out. It's at the top of the screen right there. At any second now. Oh, and the drone's doing some evasives. Oh! I gotta be honest with you, man. I didn't want to be hungry before the show, but it was a mistake eating that pulled pork sandwich right before the show.
Oh, I hate to ask, but can you say why, or is it too much?
I'm just stuffed like a pig right now, and it makes me feel kind of sick, honestly.
Honestly, now that you said that, I just remembered I have my sandwich in there one day. I'll go get it.
One day. One day.
Yes.
One day in the future, in the distant future. But we also got to see that ground is still being made in Toretsk. The Ukrainians are still advancing, and it does appear that they've effectively been able to encircle the northern area of the city at this point. But moving on from that and on into our next bits of news outside of Toretsk and the major advances the Ukrainians are still making, the Ukrainians are also still making advances down near Pokrovsk, as we have been able to see that out in the fields near to Udachne, they have been continuing their advance, and they've also been able to take an entire village near to Novovasilivka, which is also just to the south of Pokrovsk. We were also able to see some additional clips showing a Russian tank getting hit in the area by the 25th Brigade.
This is that Russo Riz.
Man, they hit with the Russo Riz, блядь. Lift the sanctions, they're just too good looking. We see the
They've got that Russian Riz. They send them in. They're so rizzed, they just don't come back.
I sat there and said, whoa, looks like we have a Russian Rizzler in here. Skibbity toilet.
I'm not from Ohio, but I'm not skibbity.
I would like to thank everyone for coming here to this Congressional Congress. I'd also like everyone to give a huge shout out to my cat from Ohio up there in the top corner. It's real skibbity splendid. But moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also got to see Russian forces getting hit by the 5th Brigade.
The 5th Brigade really knows how to do it. Like, the 5th Brigade stands out to me.
I like the little lightning symbol that they have. It makes them look like a power company. And they're delivering.
It really does.
And they're
It's like
delivering.
the warning sign on the side of a power box or something.
And they're delivering straight voltage. Or juice. That would probably have been a better one to say.
Straight juice. Depending on which country you're from, they can have various different meanings.
Crocodile.
Yeah. Straight juice, bruv. They're delivering straight juice.
What's the biggest narcotic in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Well, that'd be nitrous gas. Wasn't that laughing gas? Yeah, it's like, yeah, you know, we call it whippets. It's why? Because after you get done with one of those, you want to whip it. It's just like, all right, it's like, fair enough. But anyways, that's the other clip.
You know why they call it whippets, by the way? Do you know why they call them that?
Why?
Because the cartridges are used to make whipped cream, by the way, and I think it's a brand like a Whippets, like nitrous cartridges or something like that. It's used for like the food service industry, but someone thought it'd be a great idea to try to snort it, so they started snorting the whipped cream maker.
Huh, that's interesting. I did not know that, but that's news to me. And now we can see the Russians getting bogged down in the mud.
Is that a lotta?
That is a lot of Neva.
Man, a whole lot of transmission troubles.
A whole lot of repair bills. Oh, whoa!
Also, someone said huffing it. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with these terminologies. I'm sorry. I'm just watching a few documentaries on the National Geographic Channel of like, Drugs Inc. or something like that. That's where I get my knowledge from. So I'm not familiar with it. But it's not snorting the whipper or whatever it's called. It's huffing it.
We've been looking to bring down the price of eggs and also try and make it more affordable. I've been considering making chickens have nitrous. Like maybe that'll fix it.
We want the best whipped cream. Whip. Cool whip.
We want the best whips, like the ones you see the Crips driving around Los Angeles. It's like we want those kinds. But you see, the vehicle was destroyed. Very nice to see. And moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see them hitting Russian forces down here. Take a look. Take a little gander.
Leo Ravagel said, sounds like a hot dog man culture, LMFO. I'm sure you could probably have corrected that on the spot the moment I said that. No, you idiot. It's huffing it. It's not snorting.
Wow,
that's for coke.
Look at this guy. He's not exposed to the criminal underworld of using narcotics. What a loser. It goes back to snorting. It's like,
what a beta simp.
Oh, man. What a real beta. Oh, man.
They haven't lived until they've gone to the halfway house.
They haven't lived until they've gone to the psych ward and gotten the grippy socks.
Man, those grippy socks, those do like hit hard though.
I've never even seen the grippy socks before, beyond the memes.
I think it's just literally socks with some rubber on the bottom or something. So, you don't want to slip in the psych ward. Like you may bash your head into a wall, but you don't want to slip.
Yeah, you don't want to slip on the urine and excrement of the other crazy people in there. Well, I mean, that's what they're for, man. Whoa, hey, whoa, Jack, whoa. But anyways, we also get to see the Russian forces getting hit in Velika Novosilka. And they are just hitting them.
Man, someone said, I've been to the psych ward. It's crazy. Honestly, I will admit, I've not personally been admitted to a psych ward. I want to make that like a disclaimer up front. But I have been within the vicinity of a psych ward. And honestly, they say that the psych ward is worse than prison. I can attest to that. It is definitely worse than prison, like without a doubt.
Man, there's some crazy people in there. But we can see them continuing to hit more Russians in the Ronin unit down near Velika Novosilka. Also surprises us that you get grippy socks in the hospital for any reason. I didn't know that. I've never really been to the hospital much. I almost died of, let's see, of pneumonia one time. And I was in the hospital then, but I don't think they ever gave me grippy socks.
I've been in the hospital. I've been admitted. And I've never gotten grippy socks. I will say that. So I
have we
think I
been
got
gypped?
robbed.
Yeah, have we been gypped? Did we like miss out on the hospital experience of getting grippy socks?
I was too busy trying to fight for my life. I'm fighting for my life, man. I'm fighting for my life.
I gotta tell you, we're gonna release our medical history, and then it's all blacked out, like you don't see a single thing about it.
Look at this, by the way. Like it hit so hard it started glitching.
Man, hit so hard it started bending reality.
Let's see, someone here has been to both prison and the psych ward. I will say that is a hell of an experience combo right there. And they said that prison is way worse. I think it depends on the prison, to be honest with you. Like if you're going to like a really bad prison, let's say like I think Rikers is a prison. I don't think it's a jail. I think it's a prison. I think it's closed now though. That would be a pretty bad prison or a jail to go to. But depending on the like condition of your prisons, it depends. I think on the state.
I think Rikers Island is a jail.
I think it might be a jail. I was thinking that when I said it, but I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah, you know that. Well, you know what? That actually does sound like something that I've heard before. A fellow in the chat with a verified check mark. That actually sounds like something I have heard of before, like things that have happened in there. I think from a first-hand account I heard, someone in there believed that they were Jesus Christ reincarnate. And their parents were in there, and he was saying this to him, and they were like, "You see, you're still freaking crazy." Like it's like, dang, it's like, all right. I was like, way to put it, but I guess that's true. But like the guy ain't exactly walking on water. He's walking on his own piss in there. So I think there's a big difference. But anyways, we can see the Ronin unit also taking out more Russians down here.
Also, apparently, Rikers is a jail, so I got that wrong. But people are saying it's basically like a prison. I don't really know the difference between the prison and the jail, I'll be honest with you. I think the jail is temporary. The prison's where you go to, like, serve out a term or something, I think. But either way, like, some of them are rough. I'll tell you that Alabama's jail system specifically, the prison system, not so much. The Alabama jail system, you don't want to end up in there. You're going to be in some serious trouble if you end up in there and you're not in some sort of criminal organization. You're going to be in some serious trouble. I can tell you that just from going to a few of them when I was doing the whole legal thing back in the day, which was like only a year or two ago. But, that's back in the day for me.
Man, I'm telling you, it's a wild ride. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, Rikers is closed now. They closed it, unfortunately. Very sad. Big historic institution within the city of New York. Very sad. They shut it down. Bring back Rikers Island. Make Rikers Island great again. We need more shankings. We need more lunch riots. We need more lunch riots. Nothing can be better than a nice lunch riot. Watch someone get their head hit it with an aluminum pan. Really fun, really neat. And we can see them here continuing to hit these Russians.
Very interesting call sign, I must admit.
Looks like they got a low battery. It's about as low as the battery of the city of New York shutting down Rikers Island. Really sad. I have instituted an executive order to bring back Rikers Island. The gangs are going to be going wacky slosh all week. I promise you that. Oh, and Rikers Island apparently closes in 2027. I actually heard it was closing down in the later part of last year, but I might be wrong. Well, you see them hitting another tank.
Oh.
That's the end of the clip, but holy moly, those were some hits. We also got to see the Russians getting hit down here. You see that little castle tower looking structure? I don't even know what the hell that is. It looks like it's on a part of an industrial facility, but they hit it with some bombs.
Damn. Looks like this could be a prison. Well, they blew a hole inside of it and it still didn't collapse. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting. That's a giant hole, too. And no collapse. How bizarre. How bizarre. Absolutely crazy. Really crazy when you think about it. But moving on from that, we also get to see them hitting more Russian equipment down here. The Ronin. They were hard at work down here today.
Someone said, "What is the definition of politics?" On this channel, politics refers to domestic politics because geopolitics we have to cover that. That's what we talk about. But it's basically domestic politics is what we don't have in the chat. That's when you get into like domestic issues, which I won't even name because even naming the issues causes a row. So y'all know what I mean. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Oh man, that's something that is very tiresome because you can't even bring it up as an example because like if I say something like I'm like it's even hard to say it right now as a joke, but this is how it works with some people. You can just say a word and it's like they're the Manchurian candidate and they're activated. So you could say something like gun control and then you get no guns and then give everyone a machine gun and you get like both of them instantly and it's like, oh Lord, it's like you know, I don't know what it is with people doing that and it's like no one even cares to hear your opinion. Like, you know, it's like that's what I don't think a lot of people realize. Like, nobody cares. Like, I don't really care if y'all know my opinion. It's not going to change your minds. You're either going to agree or disagree. It's going to happen. You know, it's like, it doesn't even matter. I don't know why people are so invested in that.
But man, look at Ronin go, though. Ronin's out here, you know, taking his low batteries and recharging them.
Man. They landing now. And oh, they got the mortar, a 120 millimeter, or as they call it, a minomet. Oh man, but that's the end of the clip. Oh man, I'm telling you. And moving on from that, now the area of Zaporizhia and on down into Kherson. We also get to see them hitting Russian forces down E.
Peter, the horse is here.
And they hit them with the clusters. Oh!
Oh, smashing them hard, smashing them tough. You can't take too many hits like this. If you take too many hits like this, it's just it's the end of the line.
I gotta tell you, you take enough hits like that, you end up with nasal reconstruction. But moving on from that, we got to see this S-300 knocked out. Very sad to see. We hate to see it, but the Russians are just continuing to lose equipment day in and day out. It's a very sad thing. Many such cases. But they'll just continue to lose it because that's what they do. But moving on from that, now to Crimea. It's now time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1105 of the war. This speech is dated as the 3rd of March, but it appears to be the speech from today because there was also another one dated the 3rd of March. So, without further ado, here is the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Кілька речей за цей день провів ставку, провели аналіз пакетів підтримки та деяких контрактів, які є за цей час. Хороші результати по контрактам на артилерію. Україні потрібна міцна основа. Далі дрони, незмінний пріоритет, захист неба. Додаткові системи зараз зайшли в Україну від Литви. Дуже дякую тобі, пане президенте. Доповідав сьогодні прем'єр-міністр України по фінансах на цей рік. Ми забезпечуємо всі наші потреби. Ми пройдемо по фінансах 25-й. Сьогодні ж на ставці були деякі спеціальні питання нашої державної стійкості. Всі можливі сценарії ми пропрацьовуємо. Пропрацьовуємо так, щоб захистити Україну. Базовий сценарій – зберігати позиції та забезпечити умови для правильної дипломатії, для якнайшвидшого завершення цієї війни. Достойним миром. Мир нам потрібен. Саме мир справжній, чесний, а не війна, нескінченна. І гарантії безпеки потрібні. Саме відсутність гарантій безпеки для України 11 років тому дозволили Росії почати з окупації Криму та війни на Донбасі. Потім відсутність гарантій безпеки дозволила Росії розпочати повномасштабне вторгнення. І зараз через відсутність визначених гарантій безпеки саме Росія тримає цю війну в розпалі. І це бачить весь світ, і це визнає весь світ. Сьогодні ми продовжили нашу роботу з європейськими партнерами щодо спеціальної дипломатичної та безпекової архітектури. Архітектури, яка може наблизити мир. Це те, зокрема, про що ми говорили в Лондоні напередодні. І перед тим з багатьма лідерами світу. Україна, вся Європа, Америка, разом ми можемо забезпечити десятиліття спокою. І треба для цього бути в конструктиві, працювати разом, доповнювати пропозиції одне одного і прискорювати дипломатію для завершення війни. Говорив сьогодні я з лідерами Балтійських держав, Литва, Латвія, Естонія. Хороша розмова і про підсумки саміту в Лондоні, і про можливості та бачення всіх процесів з Америкою, і про оборонну підтримку. Те, що рятує життя наших людей. Вдячний державам Балтії за те, що ви так принципово з Україною. Друзі, дякую ще раз за підтримку. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1105 of the war. And that is going to be moving us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And boy, howdy, what a night it has been. We only reached a peak viewership, a modest viewership of 7.1 thousand people here, and 42,000 people have watched the stream so far. But beyond that, it is great to have had all of y'all here so far tonight. I hope y'all have enjoyed the news, and it's time for us to get on into that question segment and to cover all, I tell you, of that amazing, wondrous questions and anything else that we have during this segment. And so, Matthew, I understand that we have another poll. Take it away, Matthew. Take it away.
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night, we have one last poll to address, and this is a very important question. It says, what should Zelensky do to secure more military aid for his country? It looks like 42% said go all in for European support, while 26% said apologize and or grovel for more U.S. aid, and 25% said play both options until certain. And I'm going to say something that's going to be an unpopular answer here, but this is going to be my honest answer. I think what Zelensky should do is he should stuff away his ego. Once again, he was not at fault necessarily for what happened in the Oval Office on Friday, but for the interest of the people of Ukraine, Zelensky should stuff his ego, put it aside, come back to America, apologize and grovel if needed for the good of the people, wear a suit when you show up, and go along with whatever the current guy sitting in the Oval Office wants to ensure that the Ukrainian people are most likely to get funded by the United States once again. That would be the best way to do it. And if Zelensky needs to play along and go along with things and basically admit fault where no fault is basically to be had, I would say that's a small price to pay in order to make sure the people of Ukraine are secure and have the best chance of, once again, getting more military aid for Ukraine. So even though it's not the preferable thing to do, I know what people are going to say. It's basically groveling to a bully. I would tend to agree with that, actually. But for the good of the people, it's necessary to do that because Europe has neglected their security for some time. They are providing a lot of aid to Ukraine, but I think they need U.S. military aid in Ukraine to keep the war going the way it's been going. And by coming to the United States and doing that and basically eating crow and being very, very humble and taking basically an ego hit, that will basically make it very hard for the United States administration to argue against aid to Ukraine in the future, and it will give them the best chance to get armed once again. So that's my opinion, and I know it's going to be unpopular, but that's what I truly believe. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I largely agree with what you're saying. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I see a lot of people saying all kinds of things about, no, that shouldn't be done. But the thing is that sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do. Like some Americans don't get it. We have to be interested and invested in our interest abroad, like supporting and helping out Europe to get the interest we have at home. And that's kind of just how it works, like, unfortunately. So with that, I hope that does address that.
And also another thing as well, once again, when I say I don't worship politicians, that means everybody. While I do admire Zelensky for being brave, I don't worship him either. He's not a perfect individual, and none of us are. At At the end of the day, Zelensky, by once again stuffing away his ego, that is not going to be the end of the world for Zelensky, nor is it going to be the end of the world for Ukraine either. And if that gives the Ukrainian people the best chance for success and to be armed militarily, I would say, like I said, that's a small price to pay. Because at the end of the day, what's it matter if Zelensky gets humiliated as long as the people of Ukraine get the arms they need? That's the way I view it. That's a very practical way to look at it. And once again, that requires folks to put their pride aside. And like I said, I will concede that Zelensky having to do that is not preferable. That's not preferable whatsoever. But at the end of the day, Zelensky might be facing a political crisis back at home if he does not deliver the aid Ukraine needs to keep the war going. Because I have a feeling that is coming up next. If Ukraine starts having an arms shortage for a long period of time, like longer than a month or two, then Zelensky could get ousted by his own people at that point. And once again, that would cause instability, and then a new leader could be put in place. And at that point, we're really not sure who that would be. It could be someone pro-Russian aligned that would take the country right into the Russian sphere. So that's my perspective on it. I see people saying it's ass kissing. Honestly, it's life. Sometimes you got to do some ass kissing. That's just the way it works. I know most people that work a job will know there's been times where you've sort of had to grovel sometimes. Some people decide to walk away and take a hit. Some people decide to grovel. In this case, when literally so many people's lives are on the line, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. That's just my opinion. But Enforcer, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I would like to weigh in. Let's see. First off, I would say that Matthew is largely right on that. And also, I see some people saying, no, he's going to go do all that and then he's going to get no military support. Well, it's either that or they get no military support anyways. So why not give it a shot to show that a shot was made and an attempt was made to help out? That would be something that I think would be fairly beneficial, because look, you're going to have some practical minds here. It's... Jeez, I got to tell y'all, folks, it's going to be hard because it's like talking to a brick wall, because I know, we make fun of Trump and then the people who love him hate us because we're making fun of him. And then we say something that sounds like it's practical, but then people also hate Trump instead of love him. So then they just act like, you can't ever do anything at all, to just work along with something if you have to. So it's just, it's impossible at this point to give analysis on anything because everyone has their mind made up. So no matter what we say, if it's just trying to work in a practical world, we're going to be getting hammered by people who act like they know better. And the thing is that if y'all know better, is him not groveling going to get Ukraine more support or no support? Well, they're getting no support right now. So maybe the best thing to do would be to kiss ass for a little bit and see if that would get support, because if it gets no support, they're already back to square one where they are right now. At least he gave it a chance. At least he gave it a shot to see if the United States will reverse what they're doing right now and continue the support, and that would make the most sense. Because at that point, would it really be better to say, well, Zelensky doesn't want to look like he's lost face, so we're going to actually let the conflict keep going, maybe even worse off for Ukraine because the Europeans can't provide all the support the United States did and Europe did combined, which means that more Ukrainian soldiers could end up getting killed. They start losing ground, and it was all because we wanted to save face because we don't like the guy who's the president, or we think that Zelensky's too high and mighty to be brought down to such a level. That then starts working illogically in a completely other direction, a completely different direction than the one that we've been working on so far, where the president's foreign policy actions have been horrendous, and they have been. But kissing ass might be the best option for the Ukrainian people, because at the end of the day, I'm not here to go around glazing Zelensky. I'll be entirely honest, Zelensky's just a guy that's there. He could be anyone for all I care. It could be Poroshenko who was there right now. It wouldn't matter to me. What matters is the benefit that could be had for the Ukrainian nation in his position, since he's the leader of the Ukrainian people, or the benefit that could be had for Western interests collectively. So that might be the best move for now. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion.
Also, by the way, I think before it's all said and done, I see people being very vehemently against it. The indication is Zelensky is going to take that approach that I'm talking about. In my opinion, I see people saying you don't grovel to bullies. I would say I 100% agree with that. You do not grovel to bullies, but in this instance, this is unique because once again, there's so many lives on the line. If it was just Zelensky, like for example, let's say it was Zelensky's political future on the line and he decided not to grovel, that would be solely on him, the consequences of that. But with him being the leader of such a large country, with so many people basically under his command, he has to put the interests of the people before his own. And if that means eating crow and being very humble and coming over to the United States and honestly kind of getting humiliated a little bit, that's a small price to pay for the people. He's not groveling to Vladimir Putin, by the way. And if he comes over here and does the strategy I'm talking about, it'll make it very hard to make the argument that Zelensky's ungrateful from that point forward. The argument could still be made, but it would make it very tough to make the argument, because if Zelensky literally comes over and is like, look, Mr. President, we got off on the wrong foot. We all made mistakes. I made mistakes. Let's do it right. At that point, what the hell you're going to complain about? There won't be much to complain about at that point, except for ironing out the details of the mineral deal. And at that point, the aid to Ukraine should be restarted at that point. And from that point forward, it's just a matter of trying to basically get what you need in negotiations. So that's my perspective. Otherwise, if they don't do that and Zelensky decides to take the very aggressive route, which he might be justified in doing it, because once again, he was treated very poorly in the White House. He's putting all of his eggs in one basket in Europe, and Europe right now is literally saying that they are not ready themselves, and that's why they're trying to rearm so quickly and spend 800 billion euros to rearm their entire alliance. So, it's a bit shaky. And once again, Europe doesn't seem to be able to unite the way I thought they were going to unite. So I was thinking the risk that Zelensky's taking by going to Europe, it might be a good one. But now after hearing what I've heard, I'm like, I don't know if Europe's going to be able to pull through. And even if they can pull through and unite, I'm not sure if they're going to have enough aid to be able to support them indefinitely inside of Ukraine. And that's something that we've heard for a long time as well. So I think this is necessary, and I think Zelensky's going to end up doing it the way I just described.
I would have to agree for the large part. I think that is probably going to be the way it's done. And I saw someone say he was accused of wanting to start World War III. So should he doom the state of Ukraine possibly to military ineptitude because he may have been offended? Like, what is the end goal of that? What would be the end goal of that be? Yeah, they said really stupid stuff to Zelensky, and most of it was unfounded or just wildly untrue. They said that they took people on propaganda tours like it's Pyongyang in North Korea. Yeah, it was stupid, and no one can, disagree with that. But at the same time, is he supposed to hold that against the United States, which is one of the largest arms suppliers, and then have the Ukrainian people suffer as a result of that because his feelings were hurt? Or is he supposed to just, overlook it and do what's best for the Ukrainian people, which is to try, even if it may not be a good chance of it, to give military support restarted from the United States? That way the Ukrainian army can continue to fight the way they have been. That would be the best option. Like even if it didn't work. And then if it didn't work, then what? They're back to square one where they're at right now. And he at least gave it a shot to show that he was willing to give it a chance and willing to put aside his own personal feelings if he got offended and do what's best for his country. That's the best way to look at it. And then if he gets betrayed, because someone said, he might be betrayed, because this guy might just back off on any agreement that he makes with Zelensky. Well, if he backs off, then that's unilaterally breaking any treaty that's made in between Ukraine and the United States, and then Ukraine can break their end of the treaty and stop the United States from extracting minerals inside of Ukraine. That's just how it works. Or they get shafted, and then people see that, and then there's other consequences in other ways. But to sit there and just say no, because largely the only argument I'm seeing at this point in the chat is, much like people don't like us making fun of the current president because they worship him, the only argument I'm seeing to not doing this is that people don't like the president. Like, they have a personal conviction to not like him. So then people don't want Zelensky to do this because they don't like the current president because they think he's an ass or something along those lines. And then he would be bending over, to an asshole, pretty much, is what a lot of people are saying.
Honestly, I appear to be in the minority here because most people in the chat don't seem to agree with me on this. But if Zelensky were to come over and do what I just described, I would view him as the bigger man, honestly, at that point, because we know what we're working with here on the U.S. front of things. The current U.S. president is very, I don't know how to describe it, bullhoggish toward foreign policy, just bully his way through everything. That's, of course, not a good way to deal with allies. And once again, our allies have realized we got to try to work with this guy somehow because he is the United States and that's one of our partners. And it becomes really difficult when you have someone who is basically a bully running around bullying everybody. So you can either decide to totally scrap the alliance, or you can try to make it work by trying to basically work around what that person's problem is. And with him, it's a massive ego that's insanely hard to get around. So if Zelensky realized that, and of course, I think at this point, Zelensky's definitely realized that because he saw it literally in action in the Oval Office on Friday. If he realized that and it's like, okay, I'm going to have to work with this guy and sort of worm my way around here to get what we need to save our people. And at the end of it, I'll speak my mind at the end of it with when the war is over and Ukraine wins. I'll say what I want at the end of it. But for right now, I have to look out for my people. And if that means going and eating crow or being humble or being the bigger man and showing up and basically eating my foot, then I'll do it all the way. I would look at Zelensky extremely proudly for doing that. Because once again, it's not desirable, and that would show that he is extremely dedicated to making sure his people are taken care of. And he's even willing to sacrifice his personal, basically his personal integrity at that point, to take an ego hit to make sure his people are okay. That's the way I would look at it personally. But I guess that's just me.
Also, I see someone say, shouldn't we as citizens hold our presidents in check? There's no way. You elect them in and then they're there for 4 years. How do you hold them in check? Like, how does anyone hold them in check? Once they're there, they're there. You got to wait for 4 years until their term's over. And then, that's that. It's over. Like there's no real way to work around that. So there's no way to hold them accountable. If anyone was to hold them accountable, if you're talking about the U.S. president, it would be the Congress. Or if it was any other president in any other country, it would be through their governmental system. But once you vote them in, there's nothing you can do. So, that's just reality. Someone's about to say, that's not true. If I go out to a city park and wave around a sign, I'll change things. No, you won't. That won't change anything. He's the guy who was there for 4 years is going to be there for 4 years, just like the last guy was there for 4 years. There's nothing to change at this point. You just got to try and ride it out and play the cards you dealt. You can't pretend like you can change them. You can't act like you can retroactively change them. What we're dealing with now is what we have to deal with. So we just have to find a way to work with it. So I hope that addresses that somewhat well to some folks who are saying that because it's the reality of things. You can't really change.
Honestly, though, I can see where other people are coming from. Like, I see some people are saying, well, I respect what Matt's saying, but I disagree with it. I can see the other side of the coin, by the way. Like, I've been saying that for days now. I've just now come to this realization I said today, and I've started realizing after Europe basically said they're not ready to defend themselves properly. That's basically when my opinion has changed on this issue, because before now, I was basically saying Ukraine should go entirely with Europe and try to just basically move away from the United States if they can't get the aid. But, things change as new information comes out. And now that we've heard this new information, I think that changes the situation quite a bit. So you got to roll with the punches here. Like, we can't, of course, when I started out, I was agreeing with most people in the chat. I was like, Zelensky shouldn't accept getting bullied and humiliated like that on live television. And at the moment, it seemed like a decent idea, but not anymore. I would say to put your eggs all in one basket in Europe right now, after what's been said, that would be a mistake. And I think Zelensky knows that, and that's why he sent the letter that was just mentioned in the speech.
I would say that might actually be the case at this point. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And it is time for us to move on into the question segment. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our super chats, our first one of the night. This one is going to go to Joseph Andronako, who puts in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, Joseph, for the massive support all the way, and we appreciate it very much. And Joseph said, do you think that we are seeing a new Neville Chamberlain or a strange diplomatic maneuver?
I would say that, in my opinion, it almost seems akin at this point to some form of a Neville Chamberlainism, if you can call it that, because what we're really seeing is that this is largely the speaking point of the president. We have to end this war in Ukraine because Russia's big and scary, and we're scared of the Russians and what they might do. So let's just give up and let them have whatever they want. Whatever they need to make them happy, let's just let them have it, and let's just act like this didn't happen. That's largely the kind of statement that's being made, and it's just appeasement. That's what it is. That's what the British and the French, that's what Chamberlain did with Germany, is that the Germans said, we want the Sudetenland, and we want it now. And so they went to the Munich Conference in 1938, and they went, you know what? The Germans are kind of scary. This guy, he's really, really loud. He gives a big speech. Let's give it to him. Let's just avoid his situation right now. So then they gave it to him, and then he annexed the Czech Republic later, and then he went on to invade Poland and start World War II in Europe. So with that in mind, it's a fairly similar kind of a thing. And some people don't see that. It's so crazy how people don't see that the exact same thing that happened back then is happening now. It's just that the characters are different and the story's a little bit different, but it's the exact same thing as the appeasement back then. And it's just annoying to watch people argue that this appeasement is justified because people go, well, the Russians have a lot of nukes. It's like, well, yeah, Germany had a lot of men, and nobody wanted to go and fight the Nazi Germans. That's why the Sudetenland was given over to them. And the Czechs weren't even involved in that negotiation. The Europeans and the French just told the Germans they could go and take it. Exactly the same way that this is almost about to be negotiated in Ukraine. And it's not good. Like at all. That's not a great move. That's really just allowing the Russians a blank check to do whatever they want in the future, because they're now seeing that the resolve of the West is that they're actually not brave enough to stand for their own interest. They're scared and will back away, which means that you can continue to challenge them time and time again and continue to get more and more stuff. So to me, it does seem like a Neville Chamberlain kind of a thing. And honestly, to me, it seems incredibly weak. Because for the United States, well, for the, like, just to say this, because this is something that the current administration says a lot, that America is the strongest and most powerful country in the world. We sure as hell are terrified of a country that is economically insignificant. It's economically less significant than really most states inside the United States. And on top of that, population-wise, it's insignificant. And militarily, it's a dying country that cannot even really afford to maintain a good standing army. So it's really kind of lame to see that the United States would be that terrified of a country like that, because it's a country that we shouldn't be scared of. Even still, the United States shouldn't even be scared of a peer power. We weren't back in the day when the Soviet Union was the most comparable thing to a peer power that we've ever seen in history. We were never scared of facing down the Soviet Union. So why in the world are we so scared of the Russians now and willing to give in? And some people want to argue that this is actually a position of strength and of being wise. But this is the exact same thing Neville Chamberlain said, and it's a position of weakness. In my honest opinion, I think that the United States is the most powerful country in the world economically and militarily, and I think that we really should be shifting that around. The United States should be putting our adversaries into a corner. We should be cornering the Russians. We should be cornering the Chinese. We should make them feel like they don't have room to breathe, because this is the U.S.'s world. It's not China's world, and it's not Russia's world, and it's going to be run that way. And I think a lot of people are going to be a lot happier with that than the alternative, because in the American way that the world's been run so far, Europe's had leeway to do really whatever they want. Really, everyone in East Asia has had the leeway to do whatever they want. Really, anyone who's in our sphere of influence has had the leeway to do whatever they want. It's been a free world for them. And it's either that, or they come under the control of the Chinese or the Russians, and I'd rather see a world that is headed by the United States and largely run by the United States instead of a world that's run by the Chinese or the Russians. Because there can only be one power that's actually without question in charge of most of the world's spheres of influence, and that ought to be the United States. And I believe that 100%. And that's why I say that we should be facing down the Russians, and we should be intimidating them, and we shouldn't be backing off, because backing off is nothing but a sign of cowardice and practically giving up the control that the United States has had over the world ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, where we've been the uncontested world superpower, and no one's even gotten close to even comparing. So I hope that does address that well. And also, let's see here. Let's see. One second. I'm trying to see some people saying some things. You know, another thing I have to say, because this is something that really annoys me. This is something that annoys me. This is a little bit of a problem that I've had recently. There is a group of people out here in America. They make up half the country, just kind of like the other side makes up another half. And they say that they're really proud of the country and that they're true Americans. But they doubt Americans and doubt the United States at every single turn. Our military isn't good. Our economy isn't good. The government isn't good. The people are not good. Everything isn't good in America to these people. They claim that they're the proudest of America, and nothing meets their proud standard. So it's just hot air with what they say, and that's what annoys me the most with that group of people. And I think y'all can kind of get what I'm leaning on here, is that it just annoys the hell out of me, because when I say I'm proud of the country, I actually am proud of the country. I'm proud of the achievements that we've made. I'm largely proud of what we've been able to do inside the country, the people who live in the country, what they do, the accomplishments that have been made, the economy, the military. I think it's all impressive and amazing. And when you really look at it for what it is, it actually is an impressive thing. And then at the very same moment, the people who are supposedly the true patriots, I'm not. I love the United States, and I'm apparently not a true patriot. But the people who supposedly love the United States say that the Chinese are better. Oh, look at their cities. They look so nice and they're so clean, and we just can't even compare. We've just lost. And look at Americans, you know, they like let me see here. They're so vapid and unintelligent and just don't know anything, and they're just so stupid, and we're just so far behind because the Chinese kids, they learn trigonometry in 3rd grade, and American kids, they're learning trigonometry in 8th grade. So we're just so far behind, we just can't even compare. We might as well just give up and let the Chinese take us over because we're just that bad. And it's like, I don't like, that is such a, those people like who say this kind of stuff, they're so full of shit because they say, it's almost like the same argument that people have made. Like, this is one that all of y'all will know, especially if you're an American. The same people who say I'm proud to be an American but are the exact same kind of people who say I'm not racist but, and then they always have a but after it. It's the exact same thing because they don't actually mean it. They're actually not proud to be an American. Like, they just say that to say it, just like the other people say what they say, and they're certainly, you know, what they're saying they're not. It's just an annoying thing to me. Like, when you say you're a proud American, if you think there is a problem with the country, instead of just saying that's hopeless and we're lost, how about you actually come up with a solution or come up with a way to improve things instead of just complaining and whining like a baby? That just annoys the hell out of me. Like, you see that in all these stupid groups of people who act like they're the true patriots. Like, it's just the most annoying thing. Like for example, this is one group that I have the biggest qualm with because we've run into them a couple of times, are some of the YouTubers that happen to be veterans and they just shit on the military. Like, that's what they make, that's what their living is. It's just shitting on the military after they get out. You know, they act like when they were in, they were God's chosen people. They were just perfect and brilliant and great, and the military ran like a cog when it didn't. Like, if you actually go back and look at it, it didn't. And then they want to just crap on the modern service members, like the standards are dropping, everything sucks, it just isn't that good, the military's lost and hopeless. Look at the Chinese. They can march perfectly because that's literally all they do. They don't train on infantry doctrines or anything like that. They just march down Tiananmen Square perfectly. So they are tip-top shape, and we're just hopeless in the U.S. military. Like, it's those kind of people that annoy me because they claim that they're American patriots and they never do anything but bitch and moan about the country. It's like, if these people, like these people who complain about the military, if these people think that the military is that bad, why aren't their videos constructive? They never have a constructive end to them. Like, you know, I think that the military should bring back these kinds of standards. It's just, wow, look how far we've fallen. You know, that's literally like the message in their videos. Nothing proud about the country at all. They don't have a sense of pride in it. They'd be more than happy to take the current service members, stomp on their face, and spit on their face if they get an extra $10 for AdSense on YouTube. That's what it's like at that point on the internet with that. Or it's like that with any other group that says they're proud to be an American. They'll say they're proud to be an American and then shit on the other half of the country and say that it's just ruined and doomed and the country is over and it's finished. And it's just so lame. Like, look at this. Someone said you're turning into a crying liberal just because I'm saying that the country is, like, these people are whining like that. No, you are the crying whiner. Like, I'm not even a liberal at all. But you're the crying whiner that ruins this country because you can't hear a constructive criticism and then just take it for what it is. You've got to be offended by it because you just can't keep shitting on the country with a blank check and do it for free. Like that's the thing that annoys me about you type of people, is that you'll sit there and run your mouth and whine and complain about the country. And when I actually say, why don't y'all be proud of the country for once, or speak about it from a position of pride, instead of just whining and moaning about everything, talk about how to fix the country or improve it. Apparently talking about fixing the country and improving it is something that only whiny beta bitches do these days, according to some, instead of just saying that it's doomed and finished, and actually bringing up solutions and trying to improve the country you live in and actually make it something to be proud of, according to these people. That's apparently the problem now with the country, is people like me who actually care about it and would like to see it do better. It's just so good, like, goofy. And also XML LMAO, you type of people. Yeah, it's all kinds of people like that in the United States. They love every era and every country but this one, and in this time they think everything was better. Like, I don't know if they know this, like these stupid people like that. I don't know if they know this, but America's never been perfect, like ever. Like there's always been rife corruption. There's actually been a lot more corruption usually than there is now, even, and that's shocking because the corruption looks like it's just wide out in the open. But there's always been rife corruption. There's always been questionable people out there. Like I don't know if people know this, because people talk about the moral degradation of society these days, but there was a working woman's house in almost every town in America up until about the 1910s and 20s when they were pretty much made illegal across the entirety of the United States. I don't know if people know that. I don't know if people also know that working conditions were horrendous in this country for the longest time and people were getting killed at their jobs left and right. Like I don't know if people know that. I don't know if people know that back in the day you could quite literally just pay off a politician. There was no lobbying laws. You could literally just pay them off publicly, and it was quite honestly literally just buying politicians. It used to be like that. Like nowadays it's almost the same thing, but it's a little bit better. It's just so annoying how these people sit here and act like the country's never been this worse off and it's truly fallen and it's over, or that the country is so good right now, because it's just straight up lies. It's just straight up lies. Like I don't know if y'all heard this tonight, because I did hear this. The current president has said that the economy has never been better than ever. And the last president, before he left office, said that the economy had never been better and it was the best that it had ever been under his administration in his last year. And both of them are lying. Like, both of them are just flat out lying. Inflation was skyrocketing under the last president in his last year. And inflation is still skyrocketing under the current president. And not only that, the stock market's crashing today. Like, right now. Like, it is crashing. It's like these people just lie out of their faces, and then people want to believe it and then want to defend what they would know is a flat out lie. Like anyone who's involved in the stock market right now would know that the stock market's plummeting. You can literally go pull it up. Like, let me go pull it up. The Dow Jones. There we go. Look at that. It has collapsed over the course of just today. Like, and that's not even the last 5 days. Like, it's gone down 1,100 points just on the Dow Jones. It's like that. You can't sit there and say the economy's better than it's ever been as the stock market's in the middle of diving. And that was what the last president did. That's what the current president does. And instead of saying, let's try and fix the issues, they just say, we're going to fix them. And then they don't even bring up an option, and then people believe them, and then nothing's ever changed, and nothing's ever fixed, and people just keep on living in the crap that they've been living in, and it just keeps getting worse, and then they leave after 4 years. It's just goofy. And now someone's saying it's a proof of the orange man's lies. No, the last guy lied like he did. Like exactly the same. Like, it's just insane.
They all lie.
Yeah, they all lie.
Every politician lies. That's like, if there was a job description for a politician, the top qualification would be you need to be able to lie at the drop of a hat about anything if needed. And that's the main thing a politician does. Make it sound good when it sounds bad. Tell the people what they want to hear and do the complete opposite. That's what politicians do. They've done that for ages. Some people argue they've gotten worse in the modern day. I would tend to agree with that. Some people, I think the enforcer would disagree on that. He thinks they've been the same, I think, the whole time. But me personally, like, that's just the way the politicians are. That's why you don't worship them, by the way. That's why you don't worship any politician from any country. That goes for, everybody. It's not unique to the United States.
Yeah, it's just crazy though, how it is these days. And what's crazy is that when you call it out, people are so stupid. Like on like, not all of them, but some of them are stupid enough that on both sides they act like you just deeply offended them. You've egregiously offended them for showing the stupidity of the whole system, like as a whole, like across the board, not just pointing out one or the other, just pointing out how it works these days. They act like you deeply offended them to tell them what's going on is stupid and that it needs to change. And I'll be honest with y'all, the what is going to actually ruin this country, if anything, it's not going to be the politicians. It's going to be the stupid people voting them in, because they can't get their heads screwed on straight to realize what they're actually even voting for, or to leverage their power as a voter. They just rather just give up and roll over and just keep on whining in their self-loathing and just keep voting in idiots every 4 years and every 2 years in the House and every 6 years in the Senate, and just keep on going with it around in a circle. It's just dumb. Dumbest thing ever. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on into some more questions. But thank you for the support, Joseph Andronako, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running.
Yes, indeed. And also, by the way, I was reading what some people were saying over here. Some people were saying, how dare you tell the truth? Honestly, it is the truth. you know, here's even a deeper truth than that. And some people are gonna like, honestly, when you start getting down to the truths of things and like stop glazing over everything, like just trying to go over it topically, it starts offending a lot of people because it's actually true, but people don't want to accept it. If people let go of their political hatred in this country, and some things you have a right to be angry about, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not going to get into them as it gets into domestic politics, but people have a right to be angry because some things are not good right now in the country. But at the same time, though, people like to go overboard with it and become extremely hateful because they're trying to fill a void in their life. And without the hate, they lose their entire identity without that hate. And I think that's why so many people in this country jump onto the political bandwagon, because they find some kind of fulfillment out of adopting some hatred for the other side. And it doesn't matter what side you're on. Each side hates each other equally at this point. The country is more polarized than it's ever been in the history of the country. There's no debate about that. People are at each other's throats, and they sit there consuming propaganda on social media nonstop about why this political party is bad, why this one's bad. And at the end of the day, they forget that these are still your fellow peers. These are your neighbors. These are your Americans. And while they have different ideas, that doesn't mean you have to hate them. But at the same time, though, if certain people were to let that go, they would lose their entire identity, because that's what they built their identity on, is being very vehemently against the other side at all costs, no matter what. And so that's just what it is, honestly, to me. But anyways, I'm going to jump off my rant. I'm going to move on to our next super chat here. And this one goes to KG, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, KG, for that support. He said, poll request. And do you think the U.S. president is playing 5D chess, or incompetent, or a Russian asset? And in 1 month, the USA has lost most of its credibility and also attacking its allies.
And thank you for your support, KG. And to answer that question, I would largely say that it comes down to incompetence. Generally, because of how the Ukraine situation is being handled, and also how the foreign policy situation as a whole is being handled with tariffs. Tariffs are a form of punishment. Like, it's supposed to be something that makes domestic consumers move away from buying something. It's not to make a country pay, and that's what people don't get, is that the country that the tariffs are imposed on are not paying. The domestic suppliers are paying the tariffs. So they're eating up a whole bunch of their profits and a whole bunch of their reserve capital, and then they're going to start upping their prices a good bit to account for that. And then the American consumer is going to be hit by that. That's how that works. You would have to be stupid to not know how that works. And there's plenty of stupid people out there who don't know shit, and they watch a TikTok and then they're an expert supposedly. But that's how it works. And so it's incredibly annoying to see that that's happening, because people aren't going to realize it until the prices rise, and then they're going to be going, oh, the prices rise, and then they'll be dumb enough, instead of blaming it on the tariffs being imposed, they'll blame it on the countries that the tariffs were imposed on, like it wasn't an action of the president that directly resulted in the hardships that will be seen in the price hikes. That's something that is just annoying on that end. But another thing that is showing a decent amount of incompetence is position on Ukraine. I explained in great detail at the beginning of the stream, and I think you were around for that, KG, the kind of situation that's going on in Europe, our position with the Europeans, and why the war in Ukraine means a great deal for everyone. And to act like a war can just end, and you can force an end, that's not how wars work. Like, you just can't force an end to a war. Wars end when both sides finally meet eye to eye after being beat down enough. Or wars end when you unconditionally beat another one. And we know that that's not happening in this war. The Ukrainians are not going to be unconditionally defeated, with the Western support continuing to go to them. And the Russians can't be unconditionally defeated because they're a nuclear power and they'll nuke the Ukrainians before it gets to that point. So with that in mind, we know that we have to eventually get them to where they see eye to eye. And neither of them are seeing eye to eye right now. The Ukrainians would want to go to the negotiating table, but every time the Russians have put out terms for a negotiation, they are practically unconditional terms of surrender, and that's unacceptable to the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians are going to have to keep bombing them until the Russians actually meet them eye to eye eventually, and that's something that the current administration isn't understanding, and they're acting like instead we can just force everyone to kiss and get along, and that's not going to happen. It just won't work. You cannot do that. Like, if we could have done that, why did didn't we do that in World War I or World War II or any other conflict, or we just forced everyone to sing Kumbaya and get along? You can't do that. Like, wars are nasty business, but wars have to go on until they reach their natural end. You can't force an end to them, because if you force an end to them, that means that scores weren't settled, and they're going to be settled not that long after you ended it artificially. So those two things would largely tell me that there's a lot of incompetence involved. It's someone's about to come and say, oh, you have nothing but bad things to say about the current president. Yeah, like in foreign policy, yes. The last president before him, who was Biden, didn't have anything good going for him either. Honestly, the advisors ran the country because he was largely so senile he couldn't even run it himself. Like, that would be the truth. But now we're dealing with this one. We're not dealing with the last one. We're dealing with this one. So with that in mind and working on that, it's a little bit annoying that, you know, it's largely just being run incompetently. And on top of that, he's not listening to advisors, or he's picking advisors that are pretty much yes men. So there's not really going to be a lot of taming of ideas or really bouncing around thoughts or concepts, because there isn't any advisors to do that with, or they're just not being listened to. So, you know, that's largely what it's looking like right now. So with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Glock. Who's there? LSA, a longtime channel legend, once again. And thank you very much for that $50 support, Mr. Glock. And he said, I watched the show World War II in HD, and they said that the tank battle in Kursk was the world's largest. Hundreds and hundreds of German and Russian tanks slugging it out in LSA.
Hey, an LSA, and that is actually true. That actually did happen. Still, to this day, the Battle of Kursk is the largest tank battle that ever happened in a war. And that's actually pretty shocking when you think about it. And it was fought around the plains surrounding Kursk. And I believe there was a town somewhere around here called Prokhorovka. And that's really where the tank battle happened. It was a little bit north of Kursk. And I'm trying to see if I can find it. And I really cannot. But it was fought around the city of Kursk. But that is a pretty interesting thing when you think about it, is that the largest tank battle in history was fought in this area. And now the Ukrainians are fighting not that far away from where that actual battle was fought about 70 or 80 years ago. But that is actually true, Glock who's there. That was the largest tank battle ever in history. The largest one before the end of the 20th century, though, the last massive tank battle that ever happened in history, was the Battle of 73 Easting in the Gulf War, which was a really cool one too. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Purple Gerbil, who's also a channel legend. And thank you very much, Mr. Gerbil, for that $35 support, and we appreciate it. They said, I can't really ask a question without being political, and please take a live chat and LSA forever.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And that is all right. It's really hard to answer questions these days without people taking them as political. Honestly, it's a damned if we do, damned if we don't kind of a situation. I keep on trying to cover that because people just don't get it. Like there's no way at this point where we make people happy anymore. Like, that's just how it is. Every day we lose maybe 100 subscribers at this point because, you know, they get pissed off that we say something that they don't like, because we can either say that we support what the president does, which isn't true. I mean, like, I just don't even believe that, which we would lose a decent amount of people over, or we could be neutral, which people are going to be pissed off about and we're going to lose a decent amount of people over, or we can say what we really think, and then people are going to be pissed off and we're going to lose a decent amount of people. So no matter what we do at this point, it's just going to go the way it goes. Like Matthew puts out a video today on the situation, and it's neutrally covered in the video, and people are pissed off because it's neutrally covered, and they're also pissed off because they don't like the news, so then they unsubscribe anyways. So it's perfectly fine.
Man, I honestly make the videos for the people that are like the LSA like viewers on the channel. Like, honestly, I'll say this. I appreciate and I like all the viewers that watch our channel. Obviously, if you're here watching us, like, thank you for being here. But at the end of the day, though, if someone doesn't like what we're saying, like, for example, on a video, and I try to cover it as neutrally as possible and decide to leave anyway, I mean, that's your right to leave. I mean, that's, if you can come and go from the channel as you please. So, you know, the only thing I get offended about these days is if someone hops in the comments and starts like doing personal attacks or something like that over something I said. It's like, you know, we can all have different opinions here. We don't have to start. That's that disease that's running around the country right now, is let's attack and try to destroy somebody if I don't like their opinion. It's like, You can just respect the fact that somebody's got an opinion and say, I think that's stupid, and I'm going to leave, and just let that be the end of it and simply leave. But some people want to go out swinging. It's like, you don't have a right to go out swinging. It's like, I have the right to an opinion, and you have a right to an opinion. I don't know what the hell gets into people thinking they're going to start slugging it out to tell you what you're supposed to believe. It's like, isn't that for the people that are pro-Ukraine and want to do that? It's like, isn't that what Putin's trying to do to Ukraine? But yet you're acting that way in your personal life toward other people. It's like, I'm not sure if you know really what you believe in reality, because you don't even know what you're doing in your personal life.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. That's pretty relatable. I'd have to say that's valid. That's valid. But it's tiresome, really. I mean, like it's hard to it's not hard to deal with it, but it's hard to figure out how to deal with it, because it's like, how do we deal with it? You know, it's like, do we go neutral? And then people are pissed off because we're neutral, and then we say what we think, and then people are pissed off because we say what we think. There's like no way to win. But one thing I will say, though, like Matthew says you can come and go as you please, and you can. But one thing that like just kind of annoys me is when people want to make it clear to me, or Matthew, that they don't like what we're saying, because I'm just gonna be honest, I don't give a damn like if you like what we're saying or not. We're saying what we're saying. Like if I gave a damn about what you were saying, I would have run it by you before I said it. You know, it's like that, like we were running a show. It's like if we had to go by and check out with Anthony Studebaker whether he liked everything we said or not, we wouldn't really be able to run a show. So it's a little bit annoying to me, because I've had this happen once on Discord when someone wants to take the opportunity that they have to reach out to me when I'm off work, mind you, and I don't really like even talking about what's going on off work. You know, I spend about 7 hours a day doing this show alone and the pre-show prep and everything. So when I'm off air, I don't want to talk about any of this stuff, because I've gotten to the point I talk about it enough and think about it enough just doing this as a job. And then some goofy goofball wants to start telling me that they don't like what I'm thinking, they're going to stop watching my channel. Forget it. I'm like, I really don't give a damn. It's like, you know, it's like if you didn't like it, just silently go off into the night. It's like, I don't really care. You know, it's like
You know, ultimately though, these days, like like I said, it doesn't phase me really, because the reason why I personally make the videos and also jump on the stream, and I'm happy to do it every single night, for one thing, it is my job. I will say that it's obvious. That's the obvious thing. But also number two is I actually am enthusiastic about it. I enjoy making the videos, and I never really get sick of it, to be honest with you. I actually love it for real, like actually genuinely. Is because every time I make a video and I see all the people with the kind words and also the LSAs down in the comments, that's who I'm making the video for. If people want to come in and be nasty, like some random people on the internet, they're just, you know, angry at everybody, you know, that's whatever. Just simply remove them from the comments, get rid of the comments so they don't come back and do it again. But I'm personally making it for the people that are LSA viewers that have been here for ages and that enjoy the content. That's what keeps me going with it and keeps me motivated, is solely that. So if there's a detractor here and there, it is what it is. I just ignore it and I just move on.
Well, yeah, but the thing is for me though, like just to let y'all know, I love doing what I do, but I don't want to do it any more than I have to. Like just to make that clear, because I'm at the point I've done this enough that I don't have to talk about it all day every day, because we've done this for 3 years now, and when I have to think about it, it's for business, it's for work. You know, like I'm putting together the show or I'm putting together a video. And then, you know, we put it out and, you know, we run a show. But this show, just to let y'all know, it is extremely taxing mentally and exhausting to come up with endless amounts of monologue, hours of monologue. That is mentally exhausting to me every day. So when I get done monologuing on the war and everything else going on in the world, and this show goes off air, I don't want to talk about it at all after that. Like just being entirely honest, until the next day, because I want to have a moment to, you know, take my mind off of it, do something else that I find fun, recharge, and then get back at it. Because then it's fun if I do it in moderation. If I do it all day and think about it all day, it's getting tiresome and it wears me out. So, you know, like when someone wants to sit there and bring up something I said on air, I'm like, look, I'm off the clock now. And it's like, if you didn't like it, sorry, you should have addressed that while I was on the clock, because I'm not on, like, this isn't company time right now. I'm like driving a train on Train Simulator or something, and I could give a damn. Like, if you didn't like what I said,
Who are you kidding? Who are you kidding, man? We're never off the clock. Who are you kidding? We're on the clock 24/7.
Man, well, it feels like it, but, you know, whenever I get my free time, it's like I don't want to be, you know, having to, like, distract myself with trying to explain my talking point to someone. It's like, it was very clear on air. It's like, if you didn't like it, then that's your problem, you know? It's like, that's how I look at it. But anyways, with that, I do hope that does address that well, and I think you want to give her support. And I understand that you want to send it to the live chat, so we'll make sure to send it to the live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so this one right here is going to go to DT, who said, "Do you think that Putin believes he's winning the war?"
I don't think he believes he's actually winning the war. I think that's actually why he's really trying to lean into what the President of the United States is saying about ending the war, is because it couldn't last much longer at this point. I mean, they've run out of vehicles, quite literally. They're now confiscating personal automobiles of Russian citizens because they've run out of vehicles that badly. So at that point, the war couldn't go on that much longer. So I think that he's actually wanting to end the war, and he knows that it's going fairly badly. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rye Guy SR, who puts in a $30 donation. And thank you very much, Rye Guy, for that support. And once again, helping to keep the channel running. And he said, happy you guys are on because I was watching the other and my brain hurt. Y'all need some battery backup. And if the U.S. and Ukraine sign the deal, do you think the U.S. will give a new aid package? And God bless the USA, Slava Ukraine, and LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And I didn't really see a lot of the address to Congress. I just saw the part where someone got kicked out, and then I also saw the economy's never been better. And then I was like, I was telling Matthew, I was like, no, because I just got done running a grocery run today. I would know because I was, having to pay for the groceries. And I got nothing. Like, I'll tell you all what I got. I got 2 packs of cheese. I'm talking about like the normal sizes, the normal packs with like 10 slices in it. Got 2 of those packs. Got some
2 packs of cheese. Wait a minute, you got 2 packs of cheese?
I got sharp and extra sharp because we need both.
Man, you can't be getting 2 packs of cheese, man. That stuff's expensive.
Man, but we had to because we had 2 packs before.
I'm kidding.
2 packs. 2 packs. 3 little jugs of Stoke coffee, some milk, some orange juice, and a couple of other things. It was like odds and ends things. It wasn't a lot. I mean, literally, it only filled up a quarter of the shopping cart. A Walmart-sized shopping cart. I went to the checkout, $120. $120 for that. It was nothing. Like it was quite literally nothing, and it was $120. And that's when I was like, the economy is not great because I remember back in the day when I was 12, which wasn't that long ago because I'm only 23, so this is 11 years ago. I remember back in the day that my mom would fill up a shopping cart to the point it was overflowing, and that shopping cart would cost 300 something bucks. And now a quarter of a shopping cart, it's not even overflowing, it's just a quarter of a shopping cart filled, it costs 120 bucks. That's when I know the economy isn't doing well because I'm actually the one paying the prices. So someone can call me a beta or whatever, but I'm actually having to pay bills here, unlike some idiots who live in fantasy land. And I know that it's not doing well because I'm paying for it, out of my own pocket.
Although I will say though, the egg thing, like I'm going to be straight up honest here, like a straight up lie. That you can't even control the egg situation. Like I heard the guy griping about the egg prices. It's like, now look, it's like it's been all over the news that the bird flu's running around. That's why the egg prices have skyrocketed. That's not because of like some policy decision or something. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Like those type of lies like that. And you're like, come on now. That's like so easily disproven by a simple Google search. Why even make the lie? And that's just politicians. That's what they do. They just lie.
Yeah, like a bird flu is devastating the chicken population, killing tons of them. So, there's not as many eggs being laid because there's just not enough chickens alive. And then they want to make it sound like it's a political thing, like the last president went to war on eggs. Like he just had federal agents out there with mortars and pestles, and they were just crushing eggs. Like it's like that didn't happen, and that's not happening under this administration. Chickens are just dying; they're dropping dead, and there's no eggs being laid. So it's like that's just what happens. It's like it's just a calamity that you cannot really control, and so making it sound like it is controllable or that someone is to blame for it, it's like that's just stupid. That's honestly, man, like a problem in the country these days because a lot of people take that on personally. Like nothing can ever just be done in the world and be a calamity anymore. Like people always think that someone's behind it. Like the war in Ukraine.
You never let a crisis go to waste. Politics rule number 1. You never let one go to waste. That's a crisis right there. Why let it go to waste when you can pin it on the other side and make a good point out of it? That's just the type of thinking that just is not productive whatsoever. It's just for self promotion, self-interest. And, it's like trying to blame the last guy for the egg problem is just, ridiculous, really.
Yeah, and it's like it's not getting any better under the current guy. It's like they're getting even more expensive because the chickens are still dying. So it's like so then he's going to blame the problem on the last guy, and it's like, well, you're not making the prices drop either; they're rising. So are you also to blame? Do you have the federal egg crushers out there crushing the eggs? Like what are you trying to get at? But anyways. with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Marion Deemert, who put in a very generous $30 donation as well. And thank you very much, Marion, for the support and being a longtime channel legend. And Marion said, "Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava," and the current leader is a bully.
And I thank you for the support, and I'm not going to make a comment on the current leader like that, but I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And Slava Ukrainian, Herom Slava. And with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Made in Canada 182, who puts in a 25. And thank you very much, Made in Canada, for that support. They said, "I'd just like to say I have lots of American friends, and I love and respect the American people no different today than 2 months ago. And please remember, the issue is with our governments, not each other." And LLT, LSA. And that is true, by the way. Isn't that true? I heard the Canadian Prime Minister, I think it's Prime Minister, I heard him saying that they'll keep booing the American anthem and all kinds of other stuff and basically taking the anger out on the American people for what the government has done. I'm like, that's not productive either. It's like, what can you do if all the politicians are operating on the same wavelength? They're all thinking, let's just like turn it into a shit show and let everybody fight it out. It's like, no, it's like, how about we not do that? How about you make it pointed who the issue is with? It's with the person that's in the government that's in charge right now, and that's who you're personally fighting with. It's not the American people. It's the guy in charge of the thing right now. So, I don't understand why they do that. But Enforcer, what say you?
Hey, let's boo everyone, all the people who support the current president and all the people who don't even like him. Let's just boo them all and piss them all off. It's like, what's that achieving? Rather than, honestly, all that's achieving is possibly even pushing more Americans to support the president, because it's like, you're not even differentiating in between people who may agree with what he's doing and not, or, really just making it in between him and your government. You're making it an American issue. So then you're honestly pushing more Americans to support the position. It's like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I'd have to agree with Matthew. That kind of stuff is just, it doesn't help. It only makes the situation worse.
It's because he's got a bone to pick. He's got a personal bone to pick with the guy in charge, like most people do. Most people have a bone to pick with him because his tactics are very aggressive. They're very bully-like, and most people don't like that. And then some people, have personalities that conflict with it quite badly. I would say the Canadian Prime Minister, his personality does not mesh whatsoever, not even an ounce, with the United States president, just on a personal level. So they've got a personal thing going for each other. So as politicians in charge of a country are supposed to set an example, the example that they're setting is, let's just set the whole thing ablaze and start fighting with everybody. Let's turn this into a brawl with everybody. Let's not keep it between, ourselves, the leaders of the country. Let's expand this to the entire populace of both countries and see what happens, which is a terrible idea, of course. That leads to nothing but strife.
You know what it's like, man? It's like when that one time I made a voice imitating that one YouTuber, and instead of, and I didn't even name the guy, like I just did the voice and just left it at that. And instead of him just keeping it in between him and us and telling us that he didn't like that, or just making it personal in between us and him and talking about it that way, he then had his whole community come and brigade us that one time for it. It was kind of like that. It's almost the same thing. Like really, when you think
and also I see people saying that he was talking about the president. I heard what he said. Like you can see that some people are interpreting it different. I took it as he was talking about the whole country. That's the way I took it. And once again, that's the context that they're booing the anthem. It's booing America as a country. It's not booing against the one guy, because America is not consisting of just one guy. It's 350 million plus people. So when the people booed the anthem, they're booing the entire country as a whole, which is everybody within it, which is not good. So when you condone booing of the anthem, you're condoning it toward the whole country. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, because didn't the American and Canadian hockey players, if y'all remember, go to fisticuffs because the Canadians booed the U.S. anthem, and then they went to fisticuffs on the rink after that? So it seems as though nobody in the stadium, any of the players, took it as them booing the president of the United States. They took that as the Canadians booing them. So then they went to fisticuffs over that. So, maybe that's not the best thing to do, in my opinion, because it's only going to probably push more Americans to go support the current foreign policy objectives, which aren't great. And honestly, it's tribalizing the whole thing. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for supporting the channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Steve Watkins at work, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you very much, Mr. Steve Watkins, for always being a longtime channel legend and also supporting the channel as well. We appreciate it. And as Steve said, sorry I've been MIA. The a little medication gave me some issues, and I've spent 3 months in the ICU. And I'm sorry to hear that, by the way.
Oh, damn.
He said at rehab hospitals, and now I am at home rehab. And you guys have kept me going while I was in the rehab hospital. And thank you, and the LSA. And also, I'm sorry that happened to you, Steve. And I hope you're doing well now. And I'm glad to hear that you were biding your time of watching the stream as well. I hope we were able to assist in some way. But thank you very much for the support once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you so much for the support, and also it's great to hear that we were able to keep you company for those 3 months, and I hope you're doing a lot better. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you have made this thing possible for an incredibly long time and help us to keep folks like you company when they're not doing incredibly well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that is addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Waba, who's also another longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Waba, for the $20 support. They said tacos.
Hey, and thank you so much for the Taco Fund and supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because it is folks like you, after all, that make this thing possible. And so with that, big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to S. Pedro, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you very much, S. Pedro, for the support. He said Germany is funding largest military buildup since 1934 with 900 billion euros because of Russia's aggressions. And Russia should be careful since it took a combined force of 25 plus countries to defend them. And long live Ukraine and the LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'd agree, the Russians should tread carefully, because I think even Europe in the state it's in right now militarily could really beat up the Russians and bloody them pretty well in a conventional war right now, much less after they militarize. Well, much more after they militarize. They'll certainly be able to beat the Russians down in a war if they needed to. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep it running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Chargy, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Chargy, for that support, and we appreciate it very much. He said, in my humble opinion, your ratings are huge compared to the SOTU, State of the Union, and rightly so, and LLT, LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the kind words. I'll be honest with you, I don't think that was the case, because we didn't get our normal viewership tonight, and also there was a massive spike of people who came in right after the speech ended. But I do thank you so much for the kind words still, because it means a lot and helps us to keep this channel running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Turbo Divergent, who puts in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, Turbo, as well, for that support. They said, what can we realistically do to save ourselves? I mean, my entire family is being affected, and can we legally move to Canada in a short-term time base? And I assume you're living in the United States, I would assume, based on what you're saying with that. I would say if you're living in the United States, from my perspective, I would say stay here. It's hopefully going to get better at some point. It may be rough here while, there's a bit of a learning curve. I'm not sure why there is a learning curve. This isn't brand new for the current guy there, but hopefully it'll get better. You have to have hope. Otherwise, what are we going to do? Just get depressed and go hide in a hole? We can't do that. So it just is what it is. It's 4 years. It'll be done at the end of 4 years. And, you have another chance to vote. But that's what I think. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree. I mean, it is what it is. I'm an American. I'm not running from the country no matter what happens. This is my country. I was born and raised here. It's, my problem if something happens. And at the end of 4 years, you vote. And if you like the guy, you like his, whoever's in his party. If you didn't like him, you vote for the other person. It's just how it is. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Robert McCann, who put in a 20 also. And huge shout out to Robert for helping support the channel as well. And he said, sorry for being late. Now watch this Sochi and support Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. And it's perfectly fine. Better late than never. And I thank you so much for being here with us tonight and listening to some of the very interesting news that we had. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, Andrew Tights in the live chat said, we are booing your leader, not you. I understand that, Andrew, because you're telling me that. I understand that. I understand probably the reason why most Canadians are booing is probably because solely of the administration. But the catch is, though, there are actually Canadians out there that are actually booing the entire country as a whole. And the majority of America, which does not stay up to date with the news on a regular basis, and, everybody in our chat's educated. You're keeping up with the news, and that's why you're here to hear it. But most people in this country aren't. And the way they perceive that is that the Canadians are going to war with the United States in a very political way. That's the way they perceive it. And that's where the damage is caused. It's not amongst the people that are aware of what's happening. It's amongst the people that are basically ignorant to it. And that's where the damage comes in, is it starts breeding hatred in the people that are not informed. So that was my point. But anyways, jumping on to our next one here. This one goes to Flash1, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Flash, for the support. He said, hello there, and hang tough, America, and love your working forces. And live chat question, please.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying our work, and thank you for the support. And we will make sure, of course, to get ourselves a comment from the live chat in your honor. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And our live chat question here is going to go to Governor Ivey. We're going to go ahead and address the question here. And it says, is it really true that the EU has paid Russia more for energy than they've contributed to Ukraine?
I actually don't have the numbers, and I haven't looked into the numbers on that claim to say if that's true or not. I would assume that it might actually be true because the Nord Stream pipelines were running for about 11 or 12 years, and the war in Ukraine's only been going on for 3. So just considering how long the gas was being transported from Russia to Europe, I'd assume that probably is true because it went on about 4 times longer than the war in Ukraine's been going on. So with that, I hope that does address that well, or at least give it the caveat to that kind of a statement, because that's like saying America spent more money on building railroads than we've done on going to space, because that'd be true, because railroads have existed for like 160 years, and space travel has only existed for like the past 50 or 60 years. So, yeah, that's, that would be true probably, because, once again, one's been around a lot longer to spend money on. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here goes to Panama Canal, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Panama Canal, for that support. They said, oh, man, I need a horse and something. I'm not sure what this means. Unfortunately, you know what this means?
I do not, but I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. But sadly, I think we won't be able to read that one in its entirety. But still, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And thank you very much, Panama Canal, for the support. One day you'll be ours. But anyways, thank you very much for the support, by the way. But I'm just joking. But moving on to this next one here. This one goes to Neil Vizanon, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Neil, as well, for the support. He said, Enforcer, I hate to tell you, but the reason why you never got much crap for making fun of the prior administration is because no one knew that your impression was of him. I'm sorry, man. You're just not as good as that one as the other character, LOL.
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, like, Matthew, thought everyone knew, and it seems like people always knew who we were doing. Like, some people would joke it was Jimmy Stewart, but most people were, like, getting what it was about. Because, when we say Corn Pop was a bad dude, I mean, there's not really many people who ever said that one. But I do thank you for the support. But I'll be entirely honest, like, just being frank, I really do think it was because no one cared, and they were funny jokes when we would do them back then. And these jokes that we're doing right now, I find them to be pretty funny. Like they're the exact vein or character of jokes we used to make. But in the political world, there's just nobody that ever takes a joke as a joke. Like, what happened to people who used to have tough enough skin to listen to a joke about the president? Are they too soft-skinned these days? Then you make a joke about their president. How dare you offend our president that way? It's like, oh, come on. It's like, get real. It's like...
What's the other guy say? Legalize comedy. Legalize comedy.
Yeah, legalize comedy unless if it's not their comedy. If it's making fun of them, then it's wrong. But if it's making fun of the other people now it's fine. Oh, geez. It's just... Oh, it's just rough. Oh, man. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. And then someone said, your impression sounded like everyone's old granddad. Well, he sounds like it. That's what he sounded like. What else am I supposed to do? Come on, Jack. What am I supposed to do?
Well, look, when I sit there and stutter like that and I make this kind of a voice, who do you think I'm imitating? Do you think I'm imitating someone else?
Oh, look, you go to the hills of Xi Jinping. What happened? We were doing this for years, and no one had a problem. And now we do the current one, and now people have a problem? Come on, Jack. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for supporting up with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Chargy once again, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Chargy, for that second support of the night, and we appreciate it very much. And Chargy said, Matt for president. Seriously, young people need to take the wheel now. And I must admit, that's unusual. Like, usually it's Enforcer for president. A Matt for president, I appreciate a vote of confidence. Maybe one day, me and the Enforcer will be running against each other, or maybe one day we might be on the same ticket. I don't know if that's nepotism or not, but if it is, then it won't work. If it isn't nepotism, I guess it would work. But either way, it'd be pretty good. Or I'll take an appointment. I know that is nepotism, though, probably for a fact, although I don't really know that. So who knows? But, you know, I think these days we're going off of merit. So I guess if I'm decent and if people think I'm good at the job, maybe I can get it. But anyways, Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for supporting. I like to hear that you like Matthew better than me. But anyways, with that, also someone said that sounded like Nixon.
No, that did not, because Nixon is very different. Nixon goes and wiretapes Watergate. He doesn't sit there and talk about the hills of Xi Jinping. That would be ridiculous.
But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, someone said, dudes, there's always idiots on the internet. Oh, trust me, we run into a lot of like fringe people. Like we've dealt with a lot of them over the course of the 3 years we've been on this channel right here. So we've grown a very thick skin. Like I know some people are like, these guys have got a thin skin. No, this is like, you know, if you were in our position, like most people don't understand this because there's been some people out there that's gotten some of the heat that we've gotten and they've cracked within like a couple of hours. Like one guy got harassed by the hot dog man and he instantly called the police instantly because he couldn't handle the pressure. So we've been dealing with crap from crazies like hot dog man from thousands of people on the internet daily for years. And at first, I'll admit it bothered me a bit. Now it's just like, okay, I know what the score is. It's not anything new. So we're used to it now generally, but it still gets to us occasionally though.
When I bring it up though, it's not because I'm like cracking under the pressure or anything. I'm bringing it up because I just don't even get it. I'm like, what is like I'm like actually trying to like dissect the sense behind some of it. I'm like, what is the point? Because so many people do it, you know, it's like they're like, these people actually think that they're doing something of logical sense. But it's like when you think about it, it's like they don't. So then I like sit there and talk about it. I'm like, do y'all even get the sense behind it? Or I'm really trying to point the outrageousness of it out. But honestly, at this point, we don't even care what people say or think about us anymore because it's like, you know, people are going to hate you no matter what. I mean, you could quite literally walk on water and turn water into wine and people would still hate you. And so it's like, you know, what does it matter at that point? It doesn't matter at all. But you know, that's really what I think of it at this point. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. And we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, like I saw someone mentioning, yeah, Enforcer Matt can be the vice president or whatever. If I'm ever the vice president one day, you'll never catch me sitting on a couch going, please say, please, Mr. Zelensky. You'll never catch me doing that. I'm afraid not.
Man,
I'm sorry. Even if I'm asked to do that, I'm not doing it. I just won't do it.
No, man, you're going around and doing that everywhere, man. When we have the energy secretary come in, you're going to say, did you at least say thank you? Like, or something like to the energy secretary for no reason. We'll just do it. Man, you and me, we're just going to run everyone through the ringer every time they come into the Oval Office. Like, you're going to be sitting behind me at the the wrestler desk. So I'll have one half of the desk and you'll have the other. And I'll be sitting there saying, I'm not pleased. You'll be like, yeah, not pleased. Not pleased at all. No, he's not pleased at all. You know, we'll be doing that kind of thing. You're going to
have me doing the ad-libs, man. What the hell? Like, you're going to have me doing ad-libs. Honestly, though, like, seriously speaking, like, if it came down to, like, you know, me having to do the, like, please, Mr. Zelensky, I would rather just not have the position if it had to come down to that. Now people say I was advocating for Zelensky to be a coward or start groveling. That's not being a coward. He's trying to look out for his people. What is being a coward is if you have personal beliefs about something and you're in a position like the vice presidency and you're scared to death to speak your mind or at least even come close to it unless you're instructed to say it. That, in my opinion, you know, that starts delving into a little bit of cowardice. It's like, you know, you're sitting there and being told what to say, and you say it literally line by line. I mean, that's not really like being an independent person at that point. I know, obviously, it's the vice president, but you know, at some point, you got to stand up for something you believe in. Otherwise, what's that saying?
Or the Secretary of State sinking into the couch from like fear or embarrassment or something. That too. I was like, oh, like look at that. I was like, that shows you he's not really on board with what's happening right now. But anyways,
I'm telling you. But anyways, Enforcer, moving on to our next super chat here, because I know that's what we're about to do. Our next one here goes to Barry Woodward, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Barry Woodward, as well, for that support. I appreciate it. Barry said, most importantly, maintaining the U.S. culture and the basis of the Constitution, keep it solid, And also, let any new American citizens embrace the culture and don't change it. And USA, LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. And also, Matthew, how many Super Chats do we have left?
We have 20.
Oh, not that bad of a amount, and it's actually manageable right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Adam McLean, who puts in the 20. And thank you, Adam, as well, for that support, and we appreciate it. And a longtime channel legend, by the way. He said, still today, the United States is the biggest and the most badass country in the world. And let's see here. And he also said that at the next election cycle, he'll probably vote differently.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, we'll always make sure to support American and Western values here in the stream. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And someone said, would you wear a suit to me? Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, hell, I wore a suit on our podcast that we did for the channel. I was like raring to go to get in a suit. That's why I don't understand why people were like anti-suits. I'm like, hell, I don't mind wearing a suit, actually. I actually somewhat enjoy it. I think the suits are pretty good.
And some people say they're uncomfortable, and I don't know how, because every time I've worn a suit, they weren't uncomfortable at all. It's like the only thing I really find uncomfortable is the collar. Like the collar is usually fairly tight around the neck. But that's the only thing I like that, and it's not even really that uncomfortable. Like you completely forget about that after like 5 minutes. So I don't know why people don't like wearing them. I guess it's because there has to be extra effort put into like making sure that everything's pressed and ironed, and wearing it the right way, making sure that everything lines up. Maybe that's something that gets to people. But I'll be honest with y'all, having been a reenactor and having to wear outfits or uniforms from multiple different centuries. I mean, honestly, wearing a suit's not that bad. Like honestly, other kinds of clothes that people wore in other eras were like quite literally torture to wear, put on, and everything else. Like, have y'all ever worn like wool, like actual, like I'm not talking about like modern wool. I'm talking about like old fashioned wool textiles. Like that's horrendous, itchy as hell. Like it makes you feel like you're covered in fleas, how much that wool will make you itch. That is truly torture, wearing something like that. But modern suits, nah, that's actually like very comfortable, really. And also, Wenzel said tying the tie is a pain. Yeah, now that is a pain. Yeah, I still really don't even know how to tie a tie. You
tie it once, and then you just loosen some slack in it when you're done with it, and you hang it up on the hanger, and you never have to tie it again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what you do with all of it. You never undo the ties. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Just Chillin', who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Just Chillin', as well for that support. And he said, quote unquote, complaining about a problem without posing a solution is called whining, said Teddy Roosevelt.
Boom.
And take one from the chat.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I completely agree with that. That's how I view everything. Whining, complaining without offering a solution is just whining. Complaining is when you whine about something and then you offer a solution. And that's why I always say that there should be a way to change things or fix things in the country instead of just whining about it and then leaving it for what it is. And hopefully people see that, because I think there's so much that could be improved in this country. Wages, for one, for most workers could be improved. Public transportation could be improved. Government services could be improved. Many things could be improved. There could be a little bit of trust busting out there. That could be something improved upon, something that hasn't been done recently. Lots and lots of things that could be improved upon. Not having billionaires directly involved in running the government. That's something I think could be improved upon. Things like that. Just little things. But I still think once we put them all together, it'll create one big good thing. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the live chat question in honor of the super chat goes to Miss Disa, who says, what effect does stopping the arms supply to Ukraine have on American companies? Excuse me.
The Scranton ammunition plant's going bust. So that's going to be happening probably. They're probably going to be downsizing their operations again. And if I remember correctly, they were... this wasn't it. Let me see if I can find it, because I remember we found... Oh, yeah, here we go. No, it's not over here. Where in the world was it? Where in the world was the Scranton ammunition plant? What the hell? I can't even find it.
It's probably in Rhode Island, Scranton. And this where Corn Pop used to go roam the streets, was in Scranton?
I think so. They also have the Steamtown National Historic Site in Scranton. Take a look. Take a gander. Isn't it cool? Look at that.
I've seen this before. It's very cool. I really liked it. They got an F unit. Look at that. They got an F unit. They got this old clanker. That thing's ugly. That thing's hideous, honestly. I'm trying to find something interesting for you, Jack. Look, it's a chopper. It's an Alco.
It's an Alco. Oh my God.
Oh, look, it's an SD-70. It's an SD-70 from Lackawanna. Look at that. Whoa, what do you mean, Jack? And beyond that, y'all know I can sniff out anything railroad-related in any town. But beyond that, sadly, I cannot find the Scranton ammunition plant right now. But that will most likely be going down and out because their production numbers are going to start decreasing. So they're probably going to start laying more people off and downsizing their production again. Most likely. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Tristan Marshall, who puts in a $17 donation. And thank you very much, Tristan, for that support. He said, does the euro replace the USD as the world's currency?
That would take a good, long amount of time because reserve currencies are pretty hard to get in place and pretty hard to remove. It takes a lengthy time to get them as a reserve currency and then remove them. So if that was to happen, that would take a good bit before it actually came into effect or, came into being permanently. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Power Ant, who puts in a 12. And thank you very much, Power Ant, for that support. Sadly, I can't really read this one, but I can tell you is general information in order to bring articles of impeachment. This is just generally speaking, by the way. I'm not saying I support this or not. It's generally speaking. But in order to bring those articles of impeachment, you generally have to have very concrete evidence. You really just can't have speculation. I think like you were asking about, it has to be concrete evidence. And let's see here. And honestly, to be straight up honest with you, getting concrete evidence of stuff like you're referring to is going to be next to impossible. It's just not going to really work. So, once again, I'm not making a statement on whether I support it or not, but that's just some general information. But thank you very much for that support, Power Rant. We appreciate the $12 support. And we also have a $12 support from Stephen Mosher as well, who said Zelensky invites X to arbitrate, invite China to run the negotiation, the mineral deal with China, never negotiate with the U.S. president on his turf. And he wants to blame a different president for World War III.
And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I don't really think I can get into much of that because it sounds like it's getting fairly political. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hotso, who puts in a 12 and just said, thank you for everything you do.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying everything we do, Hatsu, and thank you for supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And we've got one from Nobody, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Nobody, for the support. They said the Army won't let me come out of retirement. Blarg. Contracting and Border Patrol it is, I guess. Also, Zelensky had a secret meeting, violated the Logan Act, allegedly. That's what Nobody said. And not good. And Slava Ukraine, LSA.
I thank you for the support. I wouldn't know what meaning you're talking about with Zelensky there. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I suppose that the Army won't let you go. And if the Army won't let you go, you just got to stay, I suppose. But still, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. Also, someone said, screw crypto and scam and rug pull scams. You know how you avoid those? Like, here's the secret. Just don't invest in them in the first place. Like, don't touch the crypto meme coin junk like that. Just don't do it. If you want to invest, go do something with stocks or something like that long term, but don't mess with the meme like coins or whatever. That's just not good. I know some people have gotten rich. I know some people have gotten rich doing that, but most people don't. Most people just lose money.
A scam is only as good as the suckers they're scamming. That's honestly the truth. So remember that, folks. Just don't get involved in them. You don't get rug pulled. It's the simplest way around it. I've seen a lot of rug pulls. I've never been rug pulled because I just didn't get involved in them. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, let's see. Jack said in the live chat, Zelensky met with congressional leaders of a certain party before the president's meeting. A foreign leader can't be prosecuted under U.S. law, by the way. Like, Zelensky would not be subject to the Logan Act. I don't know if that person was referring to, prosecuting like a domestic politician or not. But I don't know anything about that, to be honest. I don't have enough details about it or anything. I didn't even know that. And I'm really not even sure if that's true, actually, because I haven't really heard about that.
Well,
but
actually, just to clarify that, because that's something that's being misinterpreted right there.
when Zelensky did that, just to make that a little bit clear, what happened. That wasn't just, and I'm going to say the party names to make this a little bit more clear. He didn't meet with just Democrats. It was a bipartisan meeting that he had in between Republican and Democrat senators and representatives. I know because in in all the pictures I saw of that meeting that he had before he went to the White House, Lindsey Graham was in him, and I know that he's not a Democrat, so, that kind of disproves the claim right there. That's also why later on in the day, because a lot of people were talking about what that guy said, that's why he said I had met him just hours before that happened, and I found what he did distasteful, is because he was there at that meeting. So it wasn't just a meeting of all Democrats with Zelensky, it was literally a bipartisan meeting of Republican and Democrat senators and representatives. So that's kind of really trying to really intentionally misportray that, because that's not actually what happened. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Cold It's Art, who puts in the 10. And thank you very much, Cold It's Art, for that support. And we appreciate that very much. There was no comment attached, but thank you very much for once again helping to support the channel and keep it running. And we also have a 7 from Rob McGuffin. And thank you, Rob, as well for support. He said, what do you think of the 100-year deal that Ukraine signed with the UK, and is it real?
The 100, I think that one is, I think I heard about that a while. I think I just kind of glossed over it though. But usually I think it was 99 years, not 100 years, because usually they do like 99 years or something along those lines. Those are usually correct. That's what, the British did with China for the Hong Kong lease, is that they actually got that lease in 1897. Well, actually, I think it was in 1898, and it was a 99-year lease, so it lapsed in 1997. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And Crispy just threw in a 5. Thank you, Crispy, for the support. He said, keep kicking ass and taking names, or talking names.
And I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for those kind words as well, Crispies. Well, Crispy, not Crispies. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support. And also, we got someone here now. Oh no, Matthew, we have to bow down. We've got an educational elite here. They studied international relations and terrorism at Queen's College in Cambridge. Well, I have to tip my hat to you, sir. I have to, because I've actually met a couple of people from Cambridge and Oxford, and I'll be entirely honest with you, half of them were stupider than I am. So, I just got to say, just because you smack down Cambridge or Oxford on me, that doesn't mean I'm bending the knee. Like, you got to actually show that you know what you're talking about.
The Queen's College, actually, in Cambridge. It wasn't. I don't think it was Cambridge, like the actual college. I think it was Queen's College. But
well, I think everything in Cambridge is let me go pull that up, because I believe Queen's College is one of the colleges of Cambridge University.
I was about to have a better comeback. I actually studied both international relations and political science. So, I'm as equally as educated as you are as well. So, I mean, an opinion's an opinion.
Actually, that is a part of the University of Cambridge. So I was correct, because the colleges make up the university. Because there's different colleges.
Why do they call it Queen's College? Wait a minute. So repeat that again.
Colleges come together to make a university.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, I get it. That was going over my head there for a minute. I was like, wait a minute, colleges come together to make a university. But now I remember it was like, they named like the something school of business, the college of business, and it's like under one umbrella. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So Queen's College is one of the colleges that makes up the University of Cambridge. But I just got to be honest here. Like, it does not matter where you studied. Like, I'm sorry to say that, because look. The guy who is, well, a lot of the people right now who are in the government were taught at the elite universities, because you don't make it in America unless you go to one of those universities. So you have to go to Harvard, or you have to go to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. You have to go to one of those places to make it anywhere in America, because it's not really about education, it's about rubbing elbows. So there are a lot of stupid people at those universities. I know, because we've run into a couple of them. And I'd also know because we hear their analysis on the internet, and some of them don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like, some people are West Point educated, and they're just stupid. Like, that doesn't mean anything. It's better to see the contents of the cake than to just hear it was baked at so-and-so's place and then just assume that all of them are good. So that would be my take right there, because, I'm not ever impressed by names. You could tell me that you came from Eton, you were raised and educated at Eton College, off the Thames River in Windsor, and I'd honestly give a damn. I mean, you could be pretty dumb, and come from Eton College. So with that, I hope that does address that well. Not to not to diss on your education, but to literally drop that in the second chat I've ever seen you put in, to pretty much just like wave your hand and be like, everything I say is going to be right. That doesn't give me high hopes for you, to be entirely honest. But anyways, with that, we are on.
So by the way, somebody was joking. Somebody joked here. It was Panama Canal. They said, I dropped 200,000 on my education. How dare you? I thought they were being serious. I was like, 200,000? I was like, which degree? They're like, oh, the enforcer degree. I was like, oh, yeah, come on. We don't charge 200,000. We aren't Hustlers University out here. I mean, come on. I don't know if they charge 200,000, by the way. I'm just joking. But seriously speaking, your boy here was about to go into 200,000 in debt. Basically, when he was done with law school, I stopped way before that point. Thank God, because I didn't enjoy it one bit. I'd have been miserable in it. So, and someone said, gee, how many years to pay that off? Sad. A lot of years, actually, is what that takes to pay that off. A lot of miserable years because you have to work as a grunt in the legal field to pay off that $200,000 debt, which makes no sense. I'm glad I didn't go down that route.
Yeah, I would agree. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Eric Horner, LSA, who puts in the $5 donation. And thank you very much, Eric, for the support. He said, I just want to say, LSA, you're the best community, and the enforcers, y'all. And yes, I'm from the South. Oh, that's good to know. He said, keep up the good work.
And thank you so much for the support, and we will try and keep up the good work. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And so it said, you guys sound bitter AF. Like you were talking about the university thing. I mean, kind of, yeah, because it's like, I'll just be honest here. Isn't it kind of stupid that just because your parents, honestly, just like, because it's not the kid that's paying, they don't have enough money saved up for this nowadays. Isn't it kind of stupid that your parents can just pay exorbitant amounts of money to send you to some sort of an elite Ivy League university? You really don't learn anything there, kind of like any other university. And just because you went there, you have a better shot at things. Like, doesn't that seem kind of stupid? Like that seems stupid to me. Like, yeah, I would be bitter about that if that's what you're bringing up, because I find that to be just wildly unfair, and it really doesn't seek out the good acumen or skill that specific individuals have. It's more so that I went to a frat with this guy at Yale, so I'm going to pick him because I know him, and he could suck at what he does. He could just be terrible. It's almost like creating a nobility in America. Like that's what it is to me, like with these Ivy League colleges and the rubbing of the elbows and stuff and things like that. It's completely removing what America is supposed to be, which isn't supposed to have these striated classes where, you know, you can never climb the social ladder. Everyone's supposed to be able to climb the social ladder based off of your aptitudes and skills. That's what you really is supposed to determine your place in this country, is how skilled you are and how proficient at what you do, not what university you went to and what elbows you rubbed. Like that's my take on it. And it's kind of stupid because someone like me who went to UAB, but as far as like this social world goes, doesn't have a shot in hell compared to someone who went to Stanford or to Yale or to Harvard or anywhere like that. And that is just so dumb, because it's like I've run into people who are, we've run into people doing this who are from Harvard or from Yale or these other places, and their analysis is just like, it's akin to non-existent. Like, it's like amateurish with what they think and how they process things. And I'm like, that's what they got for their education? That's what they are? They're airheads. It's like I know at least 3 people, like off the top of my head, that aren't even me, that could defeat those arguments they're putting out, even arguments that are in support of what we're saying. Like, they're so amateurishly put, you could shoot them down quite easily. And it's like, and that's what's supposedly supposed to be the cream of the crop of this country. It's like, no. You can find the cream of the crop in these unnamed universities out there, like University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is where we went. You can find plenty of good acumen out there and a great aptitude for what these people want to do. You can find a lot of that out there. You don't have to go to Yale or Harvard for it. And that's something that really does annoy me, because it seems to be creating almost this like subclass of nobility in the country that you cannot touch unless if you were pretty much born into it, like nobility, and then your parents send you to the noble college so that way you can be around the noble folk and not the peasants. That's
you know what's worse is somebody who's highly educated and is actually very like intellectual and can actually like has a lot of knowledge, but they have no ability to like actually translate that to actually be interesting or like to speak it to where it makes sense for people, and it becomes just boring and mundane. Honestly, I'm not bashing professors as a whole. I had good professors and bad professors, like anything. But I had a couple of professors. I was like, oh my God. And like, this person knows what they're talking about, but they are so boring. They cannot like transfer the information in a way that makes sense or that is exciting or understandable or captivating at all. It's like it's like, geez, you could read a textbook or look at a wall and like understand the same way they're saying it, but they know what they're talking about. It's just that's tough when someone has knowledge but they can't translate it.
Yeah, it really is, and that's kind of an issue with a lot of folks like that. Is that they'll get the information, they'll be able to retain it, but then they are never really able to convey it. Like they know it, like they can actually do good at what they do, but then they can never convey it. And that's also something that a lot of people don't know. Is that honestly, one thing I've learned doing this is that a very interesting skill that's completely overlooked is the ability to articulate things. Most people can't. Like you find that out after a while. Most people can actually articulate things well. And that's something that you actually have to have almost as like a natural born skill, or you have to learn how to do it. And so now, like nowadays, I have a lot more respect for those salespeople, you know, like Billy Mays and stuff, who can get on air back in the day. Matthew, you remember him with OxyClean, and they can make those good pitches and stuff. Because that actually is, believe it or not, a skill. No one, like no Tom, Dick, and Harry can just walk out there and start belting out a great sales pitch and make it sound incredibly convincing like Billy Mays would. You kind of have
Like
to
that
just
slap chop guy who said you're gonna light my nuts, like that guy too.
well, man, you know, then he went to jail because of this whole thing, you know, like it's like
he had a hard time conveying that one.
Well, he had a hard time conveying it to that person because he said, "You're gonna like my nuts," and then he didn't, you know, and then that turned into a thing. So maybe he wasn't that good at articulating it as Billy Mays, but Billy Mays and also Phil Swift. Phil Swift is a good one. I saw this boat nav, you know, like he's pretty funny, and he also does good at making a sales pitch for Flex Seal because like has no one not bought Flex Seal yet? Like I know we have to try it, and some of the Flex Seal products are incredibly good, and some of them are not. Like just being entirely honest, but still, the sales pitch will make you actually want to go and get it because you see this guy like spraying down a mesh boat and then it actually floats, and he makes it convincing enough on these commercials. It's like wow, it's like I'd want to go get it to see if that's actually something you could do. Like not on that kind of a scale, but a little bit smaller, and then some of the products are okay. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion. But anyways, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Sick Lid, who's of course a channel legend as well. And thank you very much, Sick Lid, for that $20 support. And he said, for Enforcer Matt's university bills. And thank you very much, Sick Lid, for contributing to the fund. I'll be honest with you, thankfully, I've gotten to pay down a good portion of them, and that's been my priority recently. Sort of listening to Dave Ramsey on that one a bit, getting those loans paid down first, which is the smart thing to do. Before going crazy and also doing anything else. So that's what my priority has been. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, thank you so much for the support. And I've been paying mine down. First and foremost, big priority right there. Of course, the bills are always the priority. Everything else has to come second, unfortunately. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep it running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Adam McLean once again, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Adam, for the support. He said, best damn channel on the internet.
And thank you so much for the kind words. And I'm glad to know that you think it's incredibly good. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Tanino, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Tanino, for that support. They said, we are from Canada and are very angry. However, we stand for democracy. We stand for Ukraine. And long live the LSA. And thanks again, Enforcers.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much for the support and being one of our LSA members from Canada. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Robert Johnson for putting in a 5. And thank you very much, Robert, for the support. And we appreciate it very much. And there was no comment attached. But nonetheless, thank you very much for helping keep the channel running. And we also have a 5 from the B-Man, who says, being united with like minds is a better future.
And I'd agree. I'd agree with that completely. And so with that, thank you once again for support. Hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, Power Ant put in a 5 once more and said business as usual in Serbia.
Oh, yeah. Serbia is a violent place. That's how their government just runs, really. But, I was wondering what Belgrade looks like. What does it look like? Oh, actually, that's actually interesting looking. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's a very, very interesting looking. Oh, a commie block.
Oh,
wow.
Goodness. Damn.
Oh, that's very interesting. This church seems to be one of their major icons within the city. Let's see here. What else do they have in this city of Belgrade? Oh, they have this World War I era Austro-Hungarian howitzer, it appears. I forgot which one it is, but I think it's like a 15 centimeter Skoda. But I might, you know what, let me check that. 15 centimeter Skoda. Okay, well, they don't have a picture of the thing. Well, where in the world? Well, they have to have a picture of it. I mean, like, they couldn't have just not made a picture of it. Well, oh, wait a minute, this is a naval gun. Okay. So, no, that's not it. What is that? It's an Austro-Hungarian gun. It's just that I don't know what kind it is. I've seen it before, but I cannot remember the name of it to save the life of me. So, unfortunately, I'll have to just skip past that one. Maybe it's an 18, maybe it's a Skoda 18 centimeter. Because this is Skoda of some kind. It looks like it. Oh, look, Skodas.
Good rally.
It's a good rally car. Sadly, I just cannot find the name of that cannon right there, unfortunately. It looks more like a mortar, really. But they actually have a little... There's a Skoda right there. That's actually a Skoda. And then that's just a field gun. Oh, look, they have a Panzer II and an Italian L30 and a Panzer I and an M5 Stuart. Huh, that's like a little war museum over there. That's very interesting. I wonder what's in that war museum. Pray tell, pray tell. But anyways, oh, this one's blocked. They don't let you see that. That's censored by the government of Serbia. Probably showing the Ruski Mir, bled. But beyond that, very interesting city. But it doesn't really look like one I'd visit. Because it's not that pretty. Also, it looks like most of the city is brand new. Have you noticed that, Matthew? Like, most of it looks to be newer construction. Probably because it was all leveled in the middle of the conflicts that were going on in Serbia. But anyways, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to nobody once again. He puts in the 5 and says Iran isn't fighting him yet. They're going to ensure the others in the interim government of Syria do not get enough power to force him out, the last I heard.
Interesting. I thank you for sharing that because I wasn't really understanding what their objective was behind that move they made today by announcing that. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the B-Man who puts in a 5. And big shout out to the B-Man once more. He said, dang, I like this LSA real stuff.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying the LSA real stuff. I keep it real behind the scenes. Y'all don't know, like y'all hear me on air right now dissing on the current foreign policy objectives. Y'all don't know how much I was dissing on the prior president off air, and also on air. Well, actually, we made it fairly clear what we were doing on air, but off air, we're usually dissing everyone all the time. Because, you know, that's like, why in the world not? You know, it's like, they're elected officials. Shouldn't we scrutinize what they do? And I'm always scrutinizing everything that they do. You know, we could maybe come up with an itemized statement on each one if we wanted to. But anyways, with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Gachulian343, and thank you very much, Gachulian, for that. Actually, 3 $5 supports. We appreciate that. Total of 15. Thank you very much. He said, let's see here. Let me get the first one. He said, I've been in the hospital for some reasons and jail for a few others. And I'd rather spend a month in jail than a week in the ward. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard, by the way, too. Also, Gachulian said in the second one, he said, it's a long story, but I will say be careful who you trust and who you call your friends. And kindness sometimes comes with a price tag. And also, in his third one, he said, do you think this might be another rug pull like the last time Zelensky went? And I worry they might be trying to find a way to twist him into the villain.
Maybe so. Honestly, Matthew, I think I'll have to have you reread those one at a time for me to be able to answer them because I can't remember 3 of them in a row like that.
Yeah, the first 2 were statements, more like it. And then the last one was a question.
All right, I'm going to try and remember what they are, but I don't think I can. So I do
I can reread them. I was just saying that the first 2 were statements. But he said in the first one here, and the first 2 that were the same thing, the same topic, he said, I've been in the hospital for reasons and in jail for a few others. And I'd rather spend a month in jail than a week in the ward. And it's a long story, but I'll say be careful who you trust and who you call your friends.
And I would agree with you on that. I've never been in jail or the psych ward myself, but I really wouldn't want to be in either of them. But if I had to pick, I honestly think I would rather be in prison or jail than a psych ward. And also, I would have to say you have to be kind of careful who you pick as friends. I didn't really realize that. I'll be honest, usually friends I had were just friends, and that was that. I never really ran into people who were actually two-faced until we moved up here to Birmingham. And we met some very nice people in Birmingham, but there's also, for the first time ever, been two-faced people that we ran into. And it's really shocking because you really don't know how two-faced people can be until you actually run into one for the first time, and it's really a shocking kind of a thing. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support, and also maybe they're going to try and turn him into the villain if he tries to come over here, but that would be pretty tough if he came over here a second time and wore a suit and just, you know, rolled over pretty much. That'd be incredibly hard to do and pull off. But still, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Alex, who puts in a 5 and says, sell U.S. defense stocks and buy Rheinmetall, and it's the only stock propping up my portfolio in the last couple of weeks.
Well, you know, Rheinmetall, it's a great company, really. They got that Rhine and that metal. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running it. We will see. I personally don't invest in stocks, and, you know, I'm kind of lucky I don't, for at least for the moment right now. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Econ Prof, who puts in a 5 and says, good messaging.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying our messaging. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Michael, who puts in a 5. He said, in memory of Edward Wilton, 22, born Mariana, Florida, KIA Pakmut, with International UK Legion, 7th of April, 2023, buried Jacksonville, Florida.
And very unfortunate to hear about that, and my respects to him. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, someone in the chat said, Alabama, it's kind of crime central. Hey, yeah, that does prove that you lived here. By the way, he said, at least when I last lived there, we do know for a fact you live here now. So also, I'm just joking, by the way. It's kind of not really, but thank you for the input. But anyways, jumping to our next one here. This one goes to Neil Vizanon, who puts in the 5. And they said, if I ever president, I make national holiday specifically for people to roast me celebrity style. Oh, you don't need a holiday for that. They do that every day when you're the president.
Oh yeah, they do that daily. Whenever, like hell, you wouldn't believe it, but we're not even the president here, and we get roasted daily. Like someone's out there roasting us somewhere. Honestly, that's kind of an honor when you think about it, that we have enough people who know about us and enough notoriety to have someone out there each day making their entire life being a professional hater on us. Like that actually kind of reminds us how far we've made it. Because if you're being hated by a decent group of people, you know you've done something at least, whether it's good or bad. So that's kind of wild when you think about it. But you don't even have to make a national holiday for that sort of a thing. They do it daily, even on us. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 5. He said, levity and politics aside, it seems like the U.S. is giving up our hard-won place in the sphere of global politics, and it hurts my head.
And that's what I would say, and it is pretty annoying, you know, just give up and walk off. I mean, there's not even reason to, really. But still, thank you once again for support. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Leora Avagile, excuse me, who put in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Leora, as well, for that support and being a longtime channel legend. And Leora said, the presidential ticket, the Enforcer and Enforcer Matt.
Hey, and that would actually be a pretty interesting ticket. I wonder if we could get some votes that way. I think we'd have to pick a Minister of Health, though, to make sure that we really win. That would go, I think that it's time for us to put the thing in the thing and make the bear look like it got hit by a bike. And then we would be able to win. But beyond that, I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to Rose Silver for putting in a 3, along with Marc-Andre Burnett for putting in a 2, and also Plaisant for also putting in a $2 donation as well. And thank you to all 3 of you for the support, and we appreciate it very much. And of course, thank you very much for helping to get the channel running. And we also just got a $5 support here, which goes to S. Pedro. He said, I guess the big bad wolf did not huff and blow your house down or turn your electricity off. It would be a sad and short commentary video.
And they didn't. So luckily we are still on air and the winds have passed, finally. Those trade winds, they have finally passed and we didn't get the power knocked out, luckily. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2. And thank you, Sarge, for that support. He said, LSA hit the like button. That's an order.
And hit that like button. That is an order. And thank you so much, LSA Sergeant Figment, for being here right now and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Philip Fix's LSA, who puts in a 2 and says, Colombia, Gem of the Ocean is a straight banger.
Hey, and I thank you so much for enjoying it. Tonight was the first night in the intro that we had all of our orchestrated pieces in at one time. Still waiting on the copyrights for them at this point, but they will be in, and considering that they're already my pieces and they are copyright because they're my works for hire that I had commissioned, we decided to just put them out early because I was wanting to hear the real versions, not the synthesized versions, the mock-ups, because I was like, we have the real ones now. Why are we waiting? You know, it's like, you know, beyond the copyright issue, we might as well put them out. So I'm happy to know that you really did enjoy them, because I thought that it was really cool tonight that beyond the Bayraktar song at the very beginning of the intro, all of the music now in that entire intro is custom made for this channel, which is incredibly cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And guess what, folks? With that, we are now officially out of live or super chat questions. So once again, huge shout out to everybody tonight for supporting the channel yet again and helping to keep it running, because it's through that support that the channel does keep running every single day, and we appreciate it. So with that, it's now time to get to our live chat questions and our Morse code decoders of the stream. Tonight, we have the entire roster like usual. Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, Dave Millsaps, Aurora Fluffiness, Arabelle Garbo, Joni Dog, and Norm Pritchett. They said the Morse code for today reads, Russia should try and see how many more of themselves they can lose before they give up. And LLT, LSA.
And that is the sound of the money, and y'all got it down on the nail. Y'all hit the jackpot, and I gotta say a big congratulations to y'all for continuing to get that correct time and time again, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all out there deciphering that Morse code message, we wouldn't be able to know what it is. And so with that, we are on to the live chat questions. Due to time constraints, we'll only be able to get 3 live chats, and then we'll be rounding out tonight's stream. And so we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, how long can the Ukrainian military actually hold out if the U.S. does not restore military aid soon?
I believe that they could hold out for a pretty significant while, possibly a year or a year and a half. But not much longer than that, in my opinion, especially with Europe now saying that they really aren't prepared to support Ukraine full on, and they're going to have to start ramping up rapidly if they even have a hope of doing so. So with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to another super chat really quickly.
All right, and this one goes to Ed, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Ed, for the support. He said, hey, LSA and enforcers, and the Russians are trying to start the ride in the morning. Hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw. Oh, you're talking about the donkeys. It's an Irish Ed.
Yeah. And thank you so much for the support, Irish Ed. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And we ride at dawn. Yeah. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for supporting helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And also, by the way, I think, let's see, James Green Coffee said there's actually serious stuff going on here. The Chinese are going all in. And can you confirm I'm seeing this right? Only broke an hour or so ago. If you're talking about the trade war, the Chinese are going all in on that. They just announced that they were going to take this to the extreme, literally in less than like 30 minutes or an hour ago. And they've committed to going berserk when it comes to sanctions. So, or excuse me, not sanctions, tariffs. I mean, my brain's getting tired. But yeah, they're about to go all in on that. Canada's going all in, and also Mexico is as well. And I'm sure the EU is going to be following that up. So it's about to be a full-on crap show with that. But anyways, jumping into our second to last question tonight, this one goes to Bama FPV, who says the U.S. also provides intelligence service, eye in the sky, and will that stop too?
I believe it will. If all U.S. military support stopped, I believe that would most likely stop included. And so with that, I hope that addressed that well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one is going to go to Taylor McLean, who said, do you think the U.S. will drop sanctions against Russia's oil?
I haven't heard that one floated around yet, but you can never be certain. That might actually be out there in the horizon, or out there in some sort of a plan or an idea. If that happened, we might as well just count on the Russians, you know, fighting the war until the finish, because they'll be able to export their oil and gas wherever they wanted to, and there's probably plenty of customers that would buy it. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I gotta say, I'm honestly shocked. We had 55,000 viewers here over the course of this entire stream, and a peak viewership of 7.1. And that's actually pretty impressive when you think about it, because we were battling with a massive event that was going on in the United States tonight for viewership. But nevertheless, I thank you all so much once again for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
All right, folks, and once again, a huge thanks once again for joining us tonight. And it actually turned out to be a sizable stream, even with the speech going on as well. So we were glad to provide refuge to everybody trying to come and escape the speech. But also, thank you all for joining us once again tonight, and we'll see you all again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on the next nightly War News stream, and maybe midday tomorrow as well if there's enough news to cover on the midday short war video. But with that, of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.
To